Chapter 10. Ethics Reports. Knowledge Reports. We live in an era of civilization where it has become general not to care what is going on. The first dynamic, nothing to do with me attitude, is the product of drugs, TV, and the psychiatrists and psychologists who have perverted education and produced a criminal society wherein the individual is supposed to be the effect of everything, incapable of handling his environment. Although we are changing this society, it is nevertheless a constant challenge to one's own ability to keep things going right. Factually, to succeed in this civilization, or any society, crude or sophisticated, one has to act continually to keep one's own environment under some control. To do otherwise results in a lingering or sudden and always painful death. It does matter what goes on around one. The only thing which does not care is a corpse. It is a rather simple thing, not heroic. If one can't control a coffee cup, he is likely to get scalded. If one can't control a car, he is a statistic. Extend this to one's fellows slightly, and it is plain to see that total permissiveness, as loudly advocated by the psychs, is suicide. Standing with a bland look while Joe sticks pins in someone or something is not good manners, it's idiocy. To live at all, one has to exert some control over his equals as well as his juniors and, believe it or not, his superiors. When misconduct and out-ethics is occurring in a group, it is almost impossible for other members of the group not to know of it. At least some of them are aware of the outness. When a group has down stats, it is not true that all of them are trying to fail. Only a few are dedicated to not doing their jobs. The question one can ask of any group that is not doing well is this: why did the other group members tolerate and ignore the loafers or out-ethics cats in it? In analyzing countless numbers of groups with whom it has been my good fortune, or misfortune, to be associated, I finally isolated one factor which made an upstat group upstat and a downstat group downstat, and a horror to be around. The single most notable difference between an upstat, easy to live and work with group, and a downstat, hard to live and work with group, is that the individual group members themselves enforce the action and mores of the group. That is the difference, no other. In an upstat group, at the first pinprick, Joe would probably have a black eye. In a downstat group, Joe could go on and on with his pins, each group member watching and shrugging. In a group where members have some concept of controlling their environment and their fellows, you don't have loafers or out-ethics cats, because the rest of the group, on an individual basis, just won't tolerate it. Those who would have a tendency to wreak havoc or loaf don't dare, and the group becomes easy to live with and work with. It is not whether the group individuals should be pre-selected or carefully made ethical by some process or inspired leadership or a separate police force. It is whether the group members themselves exert any control on each other. One can say, "Oh well, if I reported the registrar violating policy, the executive director would fire me. She is his wife." One can say, "If I complain they won't let me wear my hat, they'll COMEV me for third-party actions." If such conditions prevail, the group has already lost the group ability to control the environment, and they will be downstat. Their pay will be low, their working conditions rotten. Do we have a mechanism to prevent this? Yes, we do. It is called knowledge reports. See staff member reports and other types of chits given in this chapter. Knowledge reports are enforced as follows. 1. Anyone who knew of a loafing or destructive or off-policy or out-ethics action and who did not file a knowledge report becomes an accessory in any justice action taken thereafter. 2. Forbidding anyone to write a knowledge report makes the person forbidding it and the person accepting this illegal order both accessories to any later action taken. 3. Failing to write down a disclosed crime in a worksheet or a report makes the person failing to do so an accessory to the crime. 4. Failing to file a knowledge report written by another makes one an accessory to the contents. 5. Removing knowledge reports from files makes one an accessory to the contents. 6. Failing to advise the International Justice Chief of serious charges in knowledge reports makes one an accessory to the reported outness. 7. Knowingly false statements made in knowledge reports, when proven false beyond any reasonable doubt with intent to cause trouble, may become the subject of a chaplain's court with damages awarded. See Chaplain's Court, Civil Hearings. 8. Any person who knew of an outness or crime and failed to report it and thus became an accessory receives the same penalty as the person disciplined as the actual offender. With these policies, a person with knowledge of non-optimum conduct by other group members cannot be stopped from writing and filing the report in the person's ethics file, and cannot even be stopped from going outside the org and informing, by whatever comm line, the International Justice Chief. And that does not mean this is to be used to withhold from anyone that he is writing a report. Boards of Review. It shall be part of every Board of Review action, see Board of Review, at any level to examine the status of knowledge reports as they relate to any case reviewed, and to take any action indicated by these policies. Summary. This makes it a pretty rough group for a loafer or criminal to be around, unless he or she decides to rise above the aberrations and get busy and go straight. It is a failure of the individual group members to control their fellows that makes a group hard for all to live and work with. If it is present, when that is cured, the group will become a joy to be with, and work will become a breeze. If the stats of a group, large or small, are down, try it, and get a real group in return that collectively can control the environment and prosper because its group members individually help control each other. Staff member reports. Staff members must personally make certain reports in writing. Failure to make these reports involves the executive or staff member not making a report in any offense committed by a junior under him, or in case of job endangerment, by a senior over him. These reports are made to the Ethics section of the Department of Inspection and Reports. The report form is simple. One uses a clipboard with a packet of his division's color flash paper on it. This includes a piece of pencil carbon paper. This is the same clipboard and carbon one uses for his routine orders. It is a dispatch form addressed simply to the Ethics section. It is dated. It has under the address and in the center of the page the person or portion of the org's name. It then states what kind of a report it is. See below. The original goes to Ethics by drawing an arrow pointing to Ethics, and the carbon goes to the person or portion of the org being reported on by channels, B-routing. The following are the reports required. 1. Damage report. Any damage to anything noted with the name of the person in charge of it or in charge of cleaning it. 2. Misuse report. The misuse or abuse of any equipment, material, or quarters, meaning using it wrongly or for a purpose not intended. 3. Waste report. The waste of org material. 4. Idle report. The idleness of equipment or personnel which should be in action. 5. Alter-is report. The alteration of design, policy, technology, or errors being made in construction. 6. Loss or theft report. The disappearance of anything that should be there, giving anything known about its disappearance, such as when it was seen last. 7. A found report. Anything found, sending the article with the dispatch or saying where it is. 8. Non-compliance report. Non-compliance with legal orders. 9. Dev-T report. Stating whether offline, off-policy, or off-origin, and from whom, to whom, and subject. 10. Error report. Any error made. 11. Misdemeanor report. Any misdemeanor noted. 12. A crime report. Any crime noted or suspected, but if suspicion only, it must be so stated. 13. A high crime report. Any high crime noted or suspected, but if only suspected, it must be so stated. 14. A no report report. Any failure to receive a report or an illegible report or folder. 15. A false report report. Any report received that turned out to be false. 16. A false attestation report. Any false attestation noted, but in this case the document is attached to the report. 17. An annoyance report. Anything about which one is annoyed, giving the person or portion of an org or org one is annoyed with but the Department of Inspection and Reports and a senior org are exempt and may not be reported on. 18. A job endangerment report. Reporting any order received from a superior that endangered one's job by demanding one alter or depart from known policy, the orders of a person senior to one's immediate superior, altered or countermanded by one's immediate superior, or advice from one's immediate superior not to comply with orders or policy. 19. Technical Alter-Is Report. Any ordered alteration of technology not given in an HCOB, book, or LRH tape. 20. Technical Non-Compliance Report. Any failure to apply the correct technical procedure. 21. Knowledge Report. On noting some investigation is in progress and having data on it of value to ethics. These reports are simply written and sent. One does not expect an executive to front up to personnel who err. One does expect an executive to make a report routinely on the matter, no matter what the executive also does. Only in this way can bad spots in the organization be recognized and corrected. For reports other than one's own, collect and point out bad conditions before those can harm the org. These reports are filed by ethics in the ethics files in the staff member's folder, or in the folder of the portion of the org. A folder is only made if ethics receives an ethics report. Unless the staff member is part of a portion of an org or an org that is under a state of emergency, 5 such reports can accumulate before ethics takes any action. But if the report is deemed very serious, ethics may take action at once by investigating. If a state of emergency exists in that portion of the org or org, 1 report can bring about a court of ethics, as there is no leeway in an emergency condition. The most serious reports, which are the only ones taken up at once, are technical alter-is, non-compliance, any false reports, false attestations, no reports, misdemeanors, crimes, and high crimes. The others are left to accumulate, except in emergency when all reports on that portion or org are taken up at once. Things that shouldn't be. If you see something going on in the org or incorrect that you don't like, and yet do not wish to turn in an ethics chit, or indeed don't know who to report, write a dispatch to the inspection officer. Tell him what you have noticed and give him what data you can. The inspection officer will then investigate it and make a report to the right executives or turn in an ethics chit on the offending persons himself. Don't just natter if there's something you don't like. Tell the inspection officer. Then something can be done about it. Tech and Qual Ethics Chits. This is a very important policy. When it is neglected, the org will soon experience a technical dropped statistic and lose income and personnel. The most attacked area of an org is its tech and qual personnel, as these produce the effective results which make Scientology seem deadly to suppressives. The suppressive is terrified of anyone getting better or more powerful, as he is dramatizing some long-gone, but to him it is right now, combat or vengeance. He or she confuses the old enemies with anyone about and looks on anyone who tries to help as an insidious villain who will strengthen these enemies. Thus, tech and qual personnel are peculiarly liable to covert, offline, off-policy annoyances, which in time turn them into PTSs. Their cases will roller coaster, and they begin to go offline, off-policy, and off-origin, see DevT policy letters, themselves. This results in a technical breakdown and an apparency of busyness in those divisions which does not in fact produce anything, being DevT. The policy, then, is no tech or qual personnel may omit giving ethics chits to ethics on any incident or action covered in the DevT policy letters or which indicate SP or PTS activity. This means they may not be decent about it or reasonable, and so refrain. This means they must know their ethics and DevT policy letters. This means they may not themselves act like ethics officers or steal the ethics hat. It means that they must chit students who bring a body and ask for unusual solutions. They must chit all discourteous conduct. They must chit all roller coaster cases. They must chit all suppressive actions observed. They must chit snide comments. They must chit alter-is and n-theta. They must chit derogatory remarks. They must chit all DevT. Anything in violation of ethics or DevT policy letters must be reported. Ethics will find then that only 2 or 3 people in those areas are causing all the upset. This fact routinely stuns tech and qual personnel when it is called to their attention that only 2 or 3 are making their lives miserable. Ethics, seeing tech statistics drop, must investigate all this, and when ethics finds the qual and tech personnel have not been handing in ethics chits, the ethics officer must report them to the HCO exec for disciplinary action. Non-interbulation order. What to do with the 2 or 3 students or PCs causing trouble? Ethics issues a non-interbulation order. This states that those named in it, the SPs and PTSs who are students or pre-clears, are forbidden to interbulate others, and if one more report is received of their interbulating anyone, an SP order will be issued forthwith. This will hold them in line until tech can be gotten in on them and takes them off the back of tech and qual personnel. Not theoretical. This is not a theoretical situation or policy. It is issued directly after seeing tech results go down, tech and qual cases rollercoaster, and results drop. Ethics found that the entire situation came about through no chits from tech and qual personnel about troublesome people, which resulted in no restraint and a collapse of Divisions 4 and 5 comm lines and results. When tech and qual personnel try to take the law into their own hands or ignores issuing ethics chits, chaos results, not case gains. Keep tech results up. Disputed ethics chits. When anyone receives an ethics chit which the recipient feels is incorrect, the answer is not to issue another chit naming the person that issued the first chit. Such action merely sets up a vicious circle of ethics chits going between 2 persons. The purpose of ethics is to get technology and policy in and get the org going, not to start slanging matches. Therefore, if anyone receives an ethics chit, he or she should first take a good look at his or her actions and see what needs to be done in order to avoid a repetition of the offense. If, however, after careful consideration, they consider the chit really unjustified, they should politely dispatch the ethics officer, stating briefly their reasons supported where possible with data, and ask for the chit to be withdrawn. If, in light of the data received, ethics is satisfied that the chit was incorrectly issued, he or she can return the chit and explanation to the originator, asking for the chit to be withdrawn. If the originator decides now to withdraw the chit after seeing the explanation, he returns it to ethics requesting cancellation, and ethics removes the chit from the file. If the originator is dissatisfied with the explanation, the chit should not be withdrawn. The originator sends the dispatch and chit back to the ethics officer with "To Ethics, File" written on it. Ethics infos the receiver and files. In this case, the receiver can, if he wishes, appeal by dispatch to the ethics officer and ask for a hearing. Thereupon, the ethics officer calls both the originator and the receiver, unless the originator is a secretary or above, to his office, and, taking only the facts set out in the receiver's dispatch to ethics, makes a quick investigation. The ethics officer then makes one of the following adjudications. 1. Have the ethics chit destroyed. 2. Have the ethics chit destroyed, and if he finds that the chit was carelessly or incorrectly issued, bearing in mind what information was available to the originator at the time of issue, indicate the incorrectness to the originator and order any necessary checkouts on the relevant policy letter or letters violated to correct the originator into future on-policy handling. 3. If he discovers the chit to have been a willful and knowing false report, convene an ethics hearing on the originator, not for the fact of filing, only for the willful and knowing false report. Or, if the originator is a director or above, request an executive ethics hearing be convened by the Office of LRH via the HCO Area Secretary. 4. Order the ethics chit to remain on the file. 5. Take up all the receiver's ethics chits and hold the hearing accordingly. If the originator is a secretary or above, the ethics officer and the receiver visit the secretary in his office for the hearing on appointment. But a secretary or above need not grant the appointment at all if so inclined. In such a case, the hearing is held without the originator in the ethics office. no person may be penalized for issuing an ethics chit. Cleaning of ethics files. An amnesty for a portion of an org or a general amnesty can be declared by the Office of LRH. See Amnesty Policy for more information on who may declare an amnesty, its purpose, and use. An amnesty will be effective up to a date 3 months before it is issued. The ethics files are therefore nullified previous to the date declared in the amnesty. An amnesty signalizes a feat of considerable moment by a portion of an org or Scientology. An HCO executive letter can complement a portion of an org and wipe out the ethics files of the portion of an org or the org complemented. An award is usually added for the persons responsible. Maintenance of a state of normal operation or affluence for 3 weeks after an emergency cleans the portion of an org or the org's ethics files. An individual may clean his own file by approaching ethics and offering to make amends. The person may be shown but may not touch his ethics files, which are always kept locked when the office is empty. The person should present a written and signed amends project petition to ethics. Ethics attaches the person's file to it and sends it safely to the Office of LRH Ethics Authority section. If accepted as adequate amends by the Office of LRH, it is authorized by the Ethics Authority section and returned to ethics, which places it on its project's time machine. When accomplished, the amends project is taken off the time machine and forwarded to the inspection section, which inspects and verifies it is done and sends all to the Office of LRH Ethics Authority section, which then authorizes the retirement of the reports on the person. If the project comes off the time machine without being done, the matter goes at once to a court of ethics. Any amends project must benefit the org and be beyond routine duties. It may not only benefit the individual. Offers to get audited at own expense and review are acceptable, as auditing will benefit everyone. To get trained at own expense up to blank and serve the org 2 years afterwards is acceptable amends. But the person's staff pay is also suspended entirely during any auditing or training undertaken as amends. To get another department's files in order on my own time would be acceptable amends. No work one would normally do himself on post is acceptable amends. A donation or fine would not be acceptable amends. Doing what one should do anyway is not amends, it is the expected. No org funds may be employed in an amends project. No amends are thereafter accepted if the person has failed to complete an amends project since the effective date of the last amnesty applying to the person's portion or org. Any bonus specifically given by the person's name also cleans the person's ethics files without comment. The responsibility for handling the cleaning of files is that of the Ethics section of the Department of Inspection and Reports, which notes amnesties, compliments, and specific bonus awards and handles its ethics files accordingly. No amends projects may be accepted except through the Office of LRH, and a superior may not bring a junior who wishes his files cleaned by amends into ethics and assist him to make the proper project applications. It must be voluntarily done by the junior. No amnesties, compliments, or bonuses may be made or declared except by the Office of LRH and as authorized by policy. Chapter 11. The Third Party. The Third Party Law. I have for a very long time studied the causes of violence and conflict amongst individuals and nations. If Chaldea could vanish, if Babylon could turn to dust, if Egypt could become a Badlands, if Sicily could have 160 prosperous cities and be a looted ruin before the year 0 and a near desert ever since, and all this in spite of all the work and wisdom and good wishes and intent of human beings, then it must follow as the dark follows sunset that something must be unknown to man concerning all his works and ways, and that this something must be so deadly and so pervasive as to destroy all his ambitions and his chances long before their time. Such a thing would have to be some natural law unguessed at by himself. And there is such a law, apparently, that answers these conditions of being deadly, unknown, and embracing all activities. The law would seem to be: a third party must be present and unknown in every quarrel for a conflict to exist. Or, for a quarrel to occur, an unknown third party must be active in producing it between two potential opponents. Or, while it is commonly believed to take two to make a fight, a third party must exist and must develop it for actual conflict to occur. It is very easy to see that two in conflict are fighting. They are very visible. What is harder to see or suspect is that a third party existed and actively promoted the quarrel. The usually unsuspected and reasonable third party, the bystander who denies any part of it, is the one that brought the conflict into existence in the first place. The hidden third party, seeming at times to be a supporter of only one side, is to be found as the instigator. This is a useful law on many dynamics. It is the cause of war. One sees two fellows shouting bad names at each other, sees them come to blows. No one else is around, so they, of course, caused the fight. But there was a third party. Tracing these down, one comes upon incredible data. That is the trouble. The incredible is too easily rejected. One way to hide things is to make them incredible. Clerk A and Messenger B have been arguing. They blaze into direct conflict. Each blames the other. Neither one is correct, and so the quarrel does not resolve since its true cause is not established. One looks into such a case thoroughly. He finds the incredible. The wife of Clerk A has been sleeping with Messenger B and complaining alike to both about the other. Farmer J and Rancher K have been tearing each other to pieces for years in continual conflict. There are obvious logical reasons for the fight, yet it continues and does not resolve. A close search finds banker L, who, due to their losses in the fighting, is able to loan each side money while keeping the quarrel going, and who will get their lands completely if both lose. It goes larger. The revolutionary forces and the Russian government were in conflict in 1917. The reasons are so many the attention easily sticks on them. But only when Germany's official state papers were captured in World War II was it revealed that Germany had promoted the revolt and financed Lenin to spark it off, even sending him into Russia in a blacked-out train. One looks over personal quarrels, group conflicts, national battles, and one finds, if he searches, the third party, unsuspected by both combatants, or if suspected at all, brushed off as fantastic. Yet careful documentation finally affirms it. This datum is fabulously useful. In marital quarrels, the correct approach of anyone counseling is to get both parties to carefully search out the third party. They may come to many reasons at first. These reasons are not beings. One is looking for a third party, an actual being. When both find the third party and establish proof, that will be the end of the quarrel. Sometimes two parties quarreling suddenly decide to elect a being to blame. This stops the quarrel. Sometimes it is not the right being, and more quarrels thereafter occur. Two nations at each other's throats should each seek conference with the other to sift out and locate the actual third party. They will always find one if they look, and they can find the right one, as it will be found to exist in fact. There are probably many technical approaches one could develop and outline in this matter. There are many odd phenomena connected with it. An accurately spotted third party is usually not fought at all by either party, but only shunned. Marital conflicts are common. Marriages can be saved by both parties really sorting out who caused the conflicts. There may have been, in the whole history of the marriage, several, but only one at a time. Quarrels between an individual and an organization are nearly always caused by an individual third party or a third group. The organization and the individual should get together and isolate the third party by displaying to each other all the data they each have been fed. Rioters and governments alike could be brought back to agreement could one get representatives of both to give each other what they have been told by whom. Such conferences have tended to deal only in recriminations or conditions or abuses. They must deal in beings only in order to succeed. This theory might be thought to assert also that there are no bad conditions that cause conflict. There are, but these are usually remedial by conference unless a third party is promoting conflict. In history, we have a very foul opinion of the past because it is related by recriminations of two opponents and has not spotted the third party. Underlying causes of war should read hidden promoters. there are no conflicts which cannot be resolved unless the true promoters of them remain hidden. This is the natural law the ancients and moderns alike did not know, and, not knowing it, being led off into reasons, whole civilizations have died. It is worth knowing. It is worth working with in any situation where one is trying to bring peace. Third party. How to find one. The way not to find a third party is to compile a questionnaire that asks one and all in various ways, have you been a victim? Do you feel ARC broken about ethics? Any officer, board of investigation, or committee of evidence that uses this approach, 1, does not find any third party, and 2, caves in people. A third party is one who by false reports creates trouble between two people, a person and a group, or a group and another group. To find a third party, one has to ask, 1. A. Have you been told you were in bad? B. What was said? C. Who said it? 2. A. Have you been told someone was bad? B. What was said? C. Who said it? 3. A. Have you been told someone was doing wrong? B. What was said? C. Who said it? 4. A. Have you been told a group was bad? B. What was said? C. Who said it? This is quite capable of running a couple light years of track. So a questionnaire should have a limiter such as, in this organization, blank. This is also a considerable process, and it may have a lot of answers, so a lot of space should be left for each question. By then combining names given, you have one name appearing far more often than the rest. This is done by counting names. You then investigate this person. Usual action, if they are not an enemy, is to issue a non-interpolation order and say why. The victim-type questionnaire will only give you your most valuable executives, who have been trying to get people to do their jobs. We have had experience with this, so it is a COMEV offense to use a victim-type approach and say one is looking for a third party. This policy is vital to HCO executive secretaries, HCO area secretaries, ethics officers, and missionaires. Chapter 12. The Scientology Justice Codes and their application. The justice of Scientology, its use and purpose, being a Scientologist. The reason we have justice codes is to have justice. We don't want or need injustice. When we have no codes, justice can be anything any authority cares to make it. We have had too much caprice passing for justice. It is time we had justice. Committees of evidence work. I recall one tech director accused of tampering with a student. I was told he was about to be disciplined and sacked. I stopped that action and had a committee of evidence convened. Accurate testimony revealed the story false and the techder innocent. Without that committee, he would have been ruined. I know of other instances where a committee found the facts completely contrary to rumor. Some are guilty, most are innocent. But thereby we have justice, and our necks aren't out. If a person is to keep the law, he or she must know what the law is, and must be protected from viciousness and caprice in the name of law. If a person doesn't keep the law, knowing well what it is, he or she hurts all of us and should be handled. The turbulence of the society around us is fantastic. There is no just civil law left, really. It is that lawless and disorderly condition in the society about us which makes it hard for us to work. Shortly, we will be even more powerful. That power must not be lawless, or we will have anarchy and dismay, enough to stop our growth. If we have a superior law code and legal system which gives real justice to people, we will simply flow easily over the society and everybody will win. Where we fail to apply our own admin, tech, and justice procedures to the society around us, let alone Scientology, we will fail. There is too much truth in our lines not to cause a social upheaval. Therefore, let us have justice and expand into higher order, not plunge the world into darkness because our power as a group struck innocent and guilty alike. A Scientologist must understand his own justice system. Without understanding, again there will be no justice. Already the following points need correction in the uninformed person concerning our justice. A committee of evidence is not a court. It is simply a fact-finding body with legal powers, convened to get at the facts and clean up the ARC breaks caused by rumor. When it has the truth of it, then a convening authority acts, but only in exact accordance with a justice code. Our justice really rehabilitates in the long run. It only disciplines those who are hurting others and gives them a way to change so they can eventually win too, but not by hurting us. A Scientologist who fails to use Scientology technology and its administrative and justice procedures on the world around him will continue to be too enturbulated to do his job. That sounds extreme to anyone. But if you look it over, you will find that the power of the society and state is pretended and is made from an effort to be powerful where they actually lack power. Our situation is quite the reverse. Ours is the power of truth, and we are capable of power as a group, having power as individuals due to processing, and power of wisdom due to superior technology. Therefore, when we grant too much beingness to their power, we are granting validity to a falsehood, and so it recoils on us. We are, in short, knocking our own heads off by failing to use our knowledge and authority when we administer or handle our fellow man or society. It's like refusing auditing to somebody or not making it possible. It's also investing a lie with power. Society is losing ground because its power is based on a pack of falsehoods. We will lose ground if we empower those lies. There's real magic to be seen here. For instance, every upset we have is traceable to our not knowing or failing to apply our technology and admin and justice procedures to the society around us and its individuals, firms, and groups. This is worse than you think. A Scientology executive not handling Dev-T developed an unnecessary traffic from a government in accordance with our Dev-T policies when it was offline and off-policy recently caused an upset. A government official was off-policy, his own bureaus, and the Scientology executive did not follow our procedure of A. Send it back to source, B. Correct the policy error, and C. Inform his superiors when results were not obtained. You say, but that's wild. Run a government by Scientology admin? Well, all I know is that it caused trouble when we didn't. Evidently, it's not them and us. It's just us and a false them. So all we have to do is to get their hats on and they're us. Failure to take our usual justice actions on offenders against us will result in eventual chaos. What matter if they don't appear before the committee of evidence we convene on them? How do we know they won't? How could the Victoria Parliament ever come right if we failed to A. Convene a committee of evidence, B. Follow our legal procedures? A reference to the Parliament of Victoria, Australia, who in the mid-1960s conducted an inquiry into Scientology. This inquiry, conducted by a one-man board, resulted in discriminatory anti-Scientology legislation. The Church appealed this matter, resulting in a decision that not only exonerated the Church and vindicated its practices, but which resulted in full legal recognition. The Church continued pursuing the matter of Australian discrimination to that nation's highest court, resulting in full religious recognition in a decision that stands today as the foremost legal decision on the subject of religion in all Commonwealth countries. No, they just stay them. Has anybody informed the FDA of our amnesty? FDA, United States Food and Drug Administration, refers to a 1963 FDA raid and seizure of e-meters and literature from the founding Church of Scientology in Washington, D.C., under the bogus allegation that these were being presented to the public as medical cures. Ultimately, however, the Church not only emerged victorious with sweeping recognition of religious bona fides, but the court ordered the return of all seized materials. Well, did you know the FDA was looking for a way out of their mess for fear we'd sue for $1 million? They'd drop the e-meter case if they thought we wouldn't sue. How do we know if we don't try? So therefore, we must use Scientology tech, admin, and justice in all our affairs. No matter how mad it sounds, we only fail when we don't. And therefore, every Scientologist should understand his own tech, codes, and procedures. Some Scientologists believe when a ComEv is convened that they are at once suspended. Nobody can be suspended or punished by the convening of a committee of evidence. It's there to find the truth. Only when its findings are submitted to its convening authority and where the convening authority acts can anyone be suspended or transferred or demoted. Don't react to Scientology justice as though it were WOG law. In society's courts, one is given the works, and truth has little bearing on the findings. A mean judge or clever attorney and small legal errors decide a lot of their cases. WOG courts are like throwing dice. There is huge cost and publicity and punishment galore, even for the innocent. So we must preserve our justice and use it. That's the main lesson. If we don't use it in all questions where the truth of the matter is in doubt, we'll just go on being WOGs. If we don't exhibit our science as a group and show a good example, what can we achieve? So let's grow up to our own technology and take responsibility for it, and wear our hats as Scientologists to the world. Offenses and penalties. These are the penalties we have always more or less used, and these are the offenses which have been usually considered offenses in Scientology. Formerly, they were never written down or routinely enforced. There was no recourse, and these lacks made staff members uncertain of their fate. They knew something happened, but not why. They knew certain things were frowned on, but not how much or little. The penalties were suddenly administered without warning as to what they would be or for what offense. This, then, is a code of discipline which we have almost always more or less used, made plain for everyone to see, with limits against overpunishment and recourse for those who are wronged. Accordingly, this code of offenses and their penalties becomes firm and expressed policy. Lack of specified offenses, penalties, and recourse bring everyone to uncertainty and risk at the whim of those in command. There are 4 general classes of crimes and offenses in Scientology. These are errors, misdemeanors, crimes, and high crimes. Errors. Errors are minor unintentional omissions or mistakes. These are auditing goofs, minor alter-is of tech or policy, small instructional mistakes, minor errors or omissions in performing duties, admin errors or omissions not resulting in financial loss or loss of status or repute for a senior. Errors are dealt with by corrections of the person, reprimand, or warnings by seniors. Certificates, classifications, and awards may not be canceled or suspended or reduced for an error. The offender may not be transferred or demoted or fined or suspended for committing an error. No committee of evidence may be convened because of an error. Repeated corrections, warnings, or reprimands by a senior can, however, bring the repeated error offenses into the category of misdemeanor. Misdemeanors. These are noncompliance, discourtesy and insubordination, mistakes resulting in financial or traffic loss, commissions or omissions resulting in loss of status or the punishment of a senior, neglect or gross errors resulting in the need to apply the emergency formula to their person, section, unit, department, organization, zone, or division, knowing and repeated departures from standard technology, instructional procedures, or policy, continued association with squirrels, abuse or loss or damage of org materiel, waste of org materiel, waste of funds, alteration of senior policy or continued ignorance of it, consistent and repeated failures to wear their hat regarding DevT, refusing an e-meter check, refusing auditing when ordered by a higher authority, disturbing a course or class, disrupting a meeting, the discovery of their having an undisclosed criminal background in this lifetime, the discovery of an undisclosed tenure in a mental hospital, processing a known trouble source or the family or adherents of a suppressive person or group, omissions resulting in disrepute or financial loss, inadequate or declining income or traffic in a section, unit, department, org, zone, or division, assisting the inadequacy or decline of income or traffic in a section, unit, department, org, zone, or division, failure to acknowledge, relay, or comply with a direct and legal order from an executive staff member, Auditor's code breaks resulting in a disturbance of the pre-clear. Failure to follow the supervisor's code resulting in disturbed students. Contributing to a crime. Failure to appear before a committee of evidence as a witness or interested party when personally given summons or receiving summons by registered post. Refusing to testify before a committee of evidence. Showing contempt or disrespect to a committee of evidence when before it. Destroying documents required by a committee of evidence or refusing to produce them. Withholding evidence. False swearing on a signed statement or form. Impeding justice. Refusing to serve on a committee of evidence. Refusing to vote while a member of a committee of evidence. Misconduct. Issuing data or information to wrong grades or unauthorized persons or groups, or issuing data or information broadly without authority. Invoicing and or depositing checks obtained in confidence. Giving org services on the basis of confidence checks received without having had the confidence check made good and correctly invoiced and banked first. Definition of confidence check. A check known by the person accepting it as not valid and covered by funds at time of acceptance, but accepted nevertheless on basis of promise by the drawer to make it good at a later date. Such offenses are subject to direct punishment by order, and for a staff member, the punishment is the assignment of a personal condition of emergency for up to 3 weeks, and for an executive staff member, the assignment of up to a 3-month personal condition of emergency. Personal conditions of emergency reduce pay or units 1/3 for the period assigned. Recourse may be had by requesting a committee of evidence for return of pay, but not damages. The same offenses may be cause for convening a committee of evidence, but may not be used for both a committee and punishment by direct order, one or the other. However, if any of these offenses become the subject of a committee of evidence, the penalty for a misdemeanor may be increased to include suspension of a single certificate and or classification, but no more, or a minor demotion or transfer, but not dismissal. None of these offenses may be made the subject of dismissal by direct order or committee of evidence. Persons may not be dismissed for misdemeanors, nor may any certificates, classifications, or awards be canceled. Non-staff or field or mission Scientologists committing those of the above, except org offenses applicable, may have a committee of evidence convened on them. Where serious, repeated, or of magnitude harmful to many, the same offenses can be reclassed as crimes by a convening authority. Crimes. These cover offenses normally considered criminal. Offenses which are treated in Scientology as crimes are theft, mayhem, harmful, flagrant, and continued code breaks resulting in important upsets, non-compliance with urgent and vital orders resulting in public disrepute, placing Scientology or Scientologists at risk, omissions or non-compliance requiring heavy intervention by seniors consuming time and money, failure or refusal to acknowledge, relay, or execute a direct legal order from an international board member or an assistant board member, being or becoming a potential trouble source without reporting it or taking action, receiving auditing while a potential trouble source, withholding from local Scientology executives that he or she is a potential trouble source, failing to report a potential trouble source to local HCO, organizing or allowing a gathering or meeting of staff members or field auditors or the public to protest the orders of a senior, being a knowing accessory to a suppressive act, using a local Scientology title to set aside the orders or policies from the International Board, following illegal orders or illegal local policies or alter-is, knowing them to be different or contradictory to those issued by the International Board, not directly reporting flagrant departures from International Board policy in a section, unit, department, org, zone, or division, being long absent from post while a senior executive without advising the board member of his or her division, permitting a section, unit, department, org, zone, or division to collapse, not taking over as a deputy in a crisis not otherwise being handled, passing org students or pre-clears to outside auditors for private commission, using an org position to build up a private practice, taking private donations while on staff to audit outside PCs, run private courses, coach or audit students or org PCs. Embezzlement, taking commissions from merchants, reselling org materiel for private gain, using an org position to procure personal or non-Scientology funds or unusual favors from the public, a firm, student, or PC. Impersonating a Scientologist or staff member when not authorized. Inciting to insubordination. Instigating a local power push against a senior. Spreading destructive rumors about senior Scientologists. Pretending to express a multiple opinion, use of everybody in vital reports, which could influence assistant board or board decisions. Not reporting the discovery of a crime or high crime to HCO of the nearest Scientology organization while in authority, or as a member of a committee of evidence, or as a witness before a committee of evidence. Refusal to accept penalties assigned in a recourse action. Refusal to uphold discipline. Getting another staff member disciplined by giving false reports about him or her. Overworking an executive by ignoring one's duties. Falsifying a communication from higher authority. Falsifying a telex message or cable. Causing a staff member to lose prestige or be disciplined by giving false reports. Seeking to shift the blame to an innocent staff member for the consequences of one's own offenses. Protecting a staff member guilty of a crime or high crime listed in this code. Stealing or seducing another's wife or husband. Committing offenses or omissions that bring one's senior staff member, unit, department, org, or zone official to personal risk and or a committee of evidence, civil or criminal court. Willful loss or destruction of Scientology property. Making out or submitting or accepting false purchase orders. Juggling accounts. Illegally taking or possessing org property. Causing severe and disreputable disturbances resulting in disrepute. Obtaining loans or money under false pretenses. Condoning circumstances or offenses capable of bringing a course, section, unit, department, org, zone, or division to a state of collapse. Holding Scientology materials or policies up to ridicule, contempt, or scorn. Heckling a Scientology supervisor or lecturer. Falsely degrading an auditor's technical reputation. Impersonating an executive staff member. Pretending Scientology certificates, classifications, or awards not actually held to obtain money or credit. Accepting donations for auditing hours or training courses for advance which are not then delivered as to hours and time in training, but not results or subject matter. Using Scientology harmfully. Not bringing a pre-clear up through the grades, but overwhelming the pre-clear with high levels. Processing or giving aid or comfort to a suppressive person or group. Knowingly using Scientology to obtain sexual relations or restimulation. Seducing a minor. Neglect or omission in safeguarding the copyrights, registered marks, trademarks, registered names of Scientology. Issuing the data or information or instructional or admin procedures of Scientology without credit or falsely assigning credit for them to another. Issuing any Scientology data under another name. Condoning the suppression of the word Scientology in Scientology use or practice. Allying Scientology to a disrelated practice. Neglect of responsibilities resulting in a catastrophe even when another manages to avert the final consequences. Creating problems in the implementation of orders. Using policy to create problems. Committing a problem. Committing a solution which becomes a problem. Case on post. Crimes are punished by convening committees of evidence and may not be handled by direct discipline. Crimes may result in suspension of certificates, classifications or awards, reduction of post, or even dismissal or arrest when the crime clearly warrants it. But such penalties must be assigned as findings of a committee of evidence for crimes and may not be assigned by direct discipline. Certificates, classifications, or awards may not be canceled for a crime. High crimes. These consist of publicly departing Scientology or committing suppressive acts. Cancellation of certificates, classifications, and awards are amongst the penalties which can be leveled for this type of offense, as well as those recommended by committees of evidence. A reward system for merit and good performance also exists. Suppressive acts. Suppression of Scientology and Scientologists. Due to the extreme urgency of our mission, I have worked to remove some of the fundamental barriers from our progress. The chief stumbling block, huge above all others, is the upset we have with potential trouble sources and their relationship to suppressive persons or groups. A potential trouble source is defined as a person who, while active in Scientology or a PC, yet remains connected to a person or group that is a suppressive person or group. A suppressive person or group is one that actively seeks to suppress or damage Scientology or a Scientologist by suppressive acts. Suppressive acts are acts calculated to impede or destroy Scientology or a Scientologist and which are listed at length below. A Scientologist caught in the situation of being in Scientology while still connected with a suppressive person or group is given a present-time problem of sufficient magnitude to prevent case gain, as only a PTP can halt progress of a case. Only ARC breaks worsen it. To the PTP is added ARC breaks with the suppressive person or group. The result is no gain or deterioration of a case by reason of the suppressive connection in the environment. Any Scientologist, in his own experience, can probably recall some such cases and their subsequent upset. Until the environment is handled, nothing beneficial can happen. Quite the contrary. In the most flagrant of such cases, the Scientologist's case worsened and the suppressive person or group sent endless distorted or false reports to press, police, authorities, and the public in general. Unless the potential trouble source, the pre-clear caught up in this, can be made to take action of an environmental nature to end the situation, one has a PC or Scientologist who may cave in or squirrel because of no case gain and also a hostile environment for Scientology. This material gives the means and provides the policy for getting the above situation handled. A potential trouble source may receive no processing until the situation is handled. Suppressive persons or groups relinquish their rights as Scientologists by their very actions and may not receive the benefits of the codes of the Church. The families and adherents of suppressive persons or groups may not receive processing. It does not matter whether they are or are not Scientologists. If the families or adherents of suppressive persons or groups are processed, any auditor doing so is guilty of a misdemeanor. See Offenses and Penalties. A potential trouble source knowingly permitting himself or herself or the suppressive person to be processed without advising the auditor or Scientology authorities is guilty of a crime. Suppressive acts. Suppressive acts are defined as actions or omissions undertaken to knowingly suppress, reduce, or impede Scientology or Scientologists. Such suppressive acts include any felony, such as murder, arson, etc., against person or property. Sexual or sexually perverted conduct contrary to the well-being or good state of mind of a Scientologist in good standing or under the charge of Scientology, such as a student or a pre-clear. Blackmail of Scientologists or Scientology organizations threatened or accomplished, in which case the crime being used for blackmail purposes becomes fully outside the reach of ethics and is absolved by the fact of blackmail unless repeated. Using the trademarks and service marks of Dianetics and Scientology without express permission or license from the owner of the marks or its authorized licensee. Falsifying records that then imperil the liberty or safety of a Scientologist. Testifying or giving data against Scientology falsely or in generalities or without personal knowledge of the matters to which one testifies. Organizing splinter groups to diverge from Scientology practices, still calling it Scientology or calling it something else. Organizing a splinter group to use Scientology data or any part of it to distract people from standard Scientology. Using Scientology, or perverted and alter-ised tech, and calling it Scientology, harmfully so as to bring about disrepute to an org, group, or Scientology itself. Issuing alter-ised Scientology technical data or information or instructional or admin procedures calling it Scientology or calling it something else to confuse or deceive people as to the true source, beliefs, and practices of Scientology. Unauthorized use of the materials of Dianetics and Scientology. Holding, using, copying, printing, or publishing confidential materials of Dianetics and Scientology without express permission or license from the author of the materials or his authorized licensee. Falsely attributing or falsely representing oneself or others as source of Scientology or Dianetics technology, or using any position gained with staff and/or public to falsely attribute non-source material to source, or to falsely represent non-source material as authorized Scientology or Dianetics technology. Acts calculated to misuse, invalidate, or alter legally, or in any other way, the trademarks and service marks of Dianetics and Scientology. Intentional and unauthorized alteration of LRH technology, policy, issues, or check sheets. Developing and/or using squirrel processes and check sheets. Knowingly giving testimony which is false, a generality, or not based on personal knowledge to imperil a Scientologist. Public disavowal of Scientology or Scientologists in good standing with Scientology organizations. Public statements against Scientology or Scientologists, but not to committees of evidence duly convened. Proposing, advising, or voting for legislation or ordinances, rules, or laws directed toward the suppression of Scientology. Pronouncing Scientologists guilty of the practice of standard Scientology. Testifying hostilely before state or public inquiries into Scientology to suppress it. Reporting or threatening to report Scientology or Scientologists to civil authorities in an effort to suppress Scientology or Scientologists from practicing or receiving standard Scientology. Bringing civil suit against any Scientology organization or Scientologist, including the non-payment of bills or failure to refund, without first calling the matter to the attention of the International Justice Chief and receiving a reply. Demanding the return of any or all donations made for standard training or processing actually received or received in part and still available but undelivered only because of departure of the person demanding. The donations must be refunded, but this policy applies. Writing anti-Scientology letters to the press or giving anti-Scientology or anti-Scientologist data to the press. Continued membership in a divergent group. Continued adherence to a person or group pronounced a suppressive person or group by HCO. Failure to handle or disavow and disconnect from a person demonstrably guilty of suppressive acts. Being at the hire of anti-Scientology groups or persons. Calling meetings of staffs or field auditors or the public to deliver Scientology into the hands of unauthorized persons or persons who will suppress it or alter it, or who have no reputation for following standard lines and procedures. Infiltrating a Scientology group or organization or staff to stir up discontent or protest at the instigation of hostile forces. Mutiny. Seeking to splinter off an area of Scientology and deny it to properly constituted authority for personal profit, personal power, or to save the organization from the higher officers of Scientology. Engaging in malicious rumor-mongering to destroy the authority or repute of higher officers or the leading names of Scientology, or to safeguard a position. Delivering up the person of a Scientologist without justifiable defense or lawful protest to the demands of civil or criminal law. Receiving money, favors, or encouragement to suppress Scientology or Scientologists. Using an org position or comm line to build up a private practice which reroutes org students, PCs, and/or staff off org lines. Severe breach of ecclesiastical and/or fiduciary duty as an executive or corporate official of any Scientology or Dianetics organization which has resulted in severe harm, loss, or disrepute for Scientology or the organization. Using Scientology lines for personal profit in such a way as to cause disruption in the organization or to block the flow of public up the bridge. Using the mailing lists of Scientology or Dianetics organizations for personal profit or gain. Employing org staff members to the detriment of the production or the establishment of the organization. Providing an organization's PC folders, ethics files, student files, accounts files, central files folders, or central files lists or partial lists or addresso lists or partial lists to any individual, group, organization, mission, or other unit or agency for any reason or purpose except those covered explicitly in existing church policy, or to provide such files or lists to any individual, group, organization, mission, or other unit or agency which is unauthorized by or in bad standing with the Mother Church. Calculated efforts to disrupt church services or the flow of public up the bridge through the churches. Refusal to allow staff or public to progress up the bridge or creating blocks on the bridge preventing such progression. Blatant and willful obstruction of church operations or interference with church contractual and other obligations to the detriment of church expansion or activities. Neglect or violation of any of the 10 points of keeping Scientology working. 1. Having the correct technology. 2. Knowing the technology. 3. Knowing it is correct. 4. Teaching correctly the correct technology. 5. Applying the technology. 6. Seeing that the technology is correctly applied. 7. Hammering out of existence incorrect technology. 8. Knocking out incorrect applications. 9. Closing the door on any possibility of incorrect technology. 10. Closing the door on incorrect application. Tolerating the absence of or not insisting upon star-rated checkouts on all processes and their immediate technology, and on relevant policy letters on HGC interns or staff auditors in the Tech Div, or staff auditors or interns in the Qual Div, for the levels and actions they will use before permitting them to audit org PCs, and on supervisors in Tech and Qual who instruct or examine or failing to insist upon this policy or preventing this policy from going into effect or minimizing the checkouts or lists. Technical degrades. 1. Abbreviating an official course in Dianetics and Scientology so as to lose the full theory, processes, and effectiveness of the subjects. 2. Adding comments to check sheets or instructions labeling any material, background, or not used now, or old, or any similar action which will result in the student not knowing, using, and applying the data in which he is being trained. 3. Employing any check sheet for any course not authorized by myself or the Authority, Verification, and Correction Unit International, AVC Int. Hat check sheets may be authorized locally per policy on check sheet format. 4. Failing to strike from any check sheet remaining in use any such comments as historical, background, not used, old, etc., or verbally stating it to students. 5. Permitting a PC to attest to more than one grade at a time on the PC's own determinism without hint or evaluation. 6. Running only one process for a lower grade between 0 to 4 where the grade end phenomena has not been attained. 7. Failing to use all processes for a level where the end phenomena has not been attained. 8. Boasting as to speed of delivery in a session, such as, I put in grade 0 in 3 minutes, etc. 9. Shortening time of application of auditing for financial or labor-saving considerations. 10. Acting in any way calculated to lose the technology of Dianetics and Scientology to use or impede its use or shorten its materials or its application. Steps to handle the suppressive person. Suppressive acts are clearly those covert or overt acts knowingly calculated to reduce or destroy the influence or activities of Scientology or prevent case gains or continued Scientology success and activity on the part of a Scientologist. As persons or groups that would do such a thing act out of self-interest only, to the detriment of all others, they cannot be granted the rights and beingness ordinarily accorded rational beings. If a person or a group that has committed a suppressive act comes to his, her, or their senses and recants, his, her, or their only terminal is the International Justice Chief via the Continental Justice Chief, who A. Tells the person or group to stop committing present-time overts and to cease all attacks and suppressions so he, she, or they can get a case gain. B. Requires a public announcement to the effect that they realize their actions were ignorant and unfounded, and stating, where possible, the influences or motivations which caused them to attempt to suppress or attack Scientology, gets it signed before witnesses and published broadly, particularly to persons directly influenced or formerly associated with the former offender or offenders. The letter should be calculated to expose any conspiracy to suppress Scientology or the pre-clear or Scientologist if such existed. B1 requires that all debts owed to Scientology organizations or missions are paid off. B2 may require that, subject to the approval of the International Justice Chief, an amends project suitable and commensurate with the severity and extent of the suppressive acts committed be completed before further A to E steps are undertaken. Before any such amends project is begun, the person must submit an amends project petition to the International Justice Chief using full CSW and stating what he proposes to do as amends, and this must be approved by the International Justice Chief to be considered valid. Evidence of genuine ethics change may be required before approval of the amends project is given. Examples of such evidence might be, depending upon the high crimes committed, the person has obtained an honest job, has paid off all debts owed to others, valid contributions have been made to the community, the person has totally ceased those actions for which he was declared, etc. It is also within the power of the International Justice Chief, when approving an amends project petition, to require, as a protector of the Church and its tenets and membership, that such amends project be carried out entirely off any Scientology organization, mission, or network lines, and to require, before the amends project may be considered complete, extensive evidence over a protracted period of time that the person has, beyond any doubt, ceased his or her suppressive actions, has created no problems for the Church or any member of the Church in any way on any line, and has undertaken and completed an action which is clearly and undeniably of benefit to mankind. C. Requires training beginning at the lowest level of the bridge at their expense if executives in charge of training will have the person or the group members. D. Makes a note of all of the above matters with copies of the statement and files in the ethics files of those concerned. E. Informs the International Justice Chief and forwards a duplicate of the original statements which show signatures. Any potential trouble source owing money to any Scientology organization is handled the same as any other Scientologist. Failure to discharge a financial obligation becomes a civil matter after normal within-org avenues of collection have been exhausted. Any PTS who fails to either handle or disconnect from the SP who is making him or her a PTS is, by failing to do so, guilty of a suppressive act. Civil court action against SPs to effect collection of monies owed may be resorted to, as they are not entitled to Scientology justice procedures. Until a suppressive person or group is absolved, or until permitted to actively engage in the training required in Point C, as duly authorized and published, his, her, or their only Scientology terminal is the International Justice Chief via the Continental Justice Chief or members of a duly authorized and convened committee of evidence. A suppressive declare order upon a person or group and all of the conditions inherent within it remain in force until the order has been officially canceled by an authorized and published church issue. Also, until a suppressive person or group is absolved, but not during the period when the person requests and has a committee of evidence, or an amnesty occurs, no Scientology justice other than the material herein applies to such persons. No committee of evidence may be called on any Scientologist or person for any offenses of any kind against the suppressive person, except for offenses which violate the laws of the land, or except to establish in cases of real dispute whether or not the person was suppressing either Scientology or the Scientologist. Such persons are in the same category as those whose certificates have been canceled, and persons whose certificates, classifications, and awards have been canceled are also in this category. The imagination must not be stretched to place this label on a person. Errors, misdemeanors, and crimes do not label a person as a suppressive person or group. Only high crimes do so. A committee of evidence may be called by any convening authority who wishes more concrete evidence of efforts to suppress Scientology or Scientologists. But if such a committee's findings, passed on, establish beyond reasonable doubt suppressive acts, the policy here applies. Outright or covert acts knowingly designed to impede or destroy Scientology or Scientologists is what is meant by acts suppressive of Scientology or Scientologists. The greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics requires that actions destructive of the advance of the many by Scientology means, overtly or covertly undertaken with the direct target of destroying Scientology as a whole, or a Scientologist in particular, be summarily handled, due to the character of the reactive mind and the consequent impulses of the insane or near insane to ruin every chance of mankind via Scientology. Potential trouble source. A Scientologist connected by familial or other ties to a person who is guilty of suppressive acts is known as a potential trouble source or trouble source. The history of Dianetics and Scientology is strewn with these. Confused by emotional ties, dogged in refusing to give up Scientology, yet invalidated by a suppressive person at every turn, they cannot, having a PTP, make case gains. If they would act with determination one way or the other, reform the suppressive person or otherwise standardly handle the situation, they could then make gains and recover their potential. If they make no determined move, they eventually succumb. Therefore, the policy herein extends to suppressive non-Scientology wives and husbands and parents or other family members or hostile groups or even close friends. So long as a wife or husband, father or mother or other family connection or hostile group who is attempting to suppress the Scientology spouse or child remains continuingly acknowledged or in communication with the Scientology spouse or child or member, then that Scientologist or pre-clear comes under the family or adherent clause and may not be processed or further trained until he or she has taken appropriate action to cease to be a potential trouble source. The validity of this policy is borne out by the fact that the U.S. government raids and other troubles were instigated by wives, husbands, or parents who were actively suppressing a Scientologist or Scientology, or who were acting under the influences of persons or agencies who had deliberately misinformed them regarding Scientology. The suppressed Scientologist did not act in good time to avert the trouble by handling the antagonistic family member. Any processing of the potential trouble source is denied or illegal while the connection exists, and a person not actively seeking to settle the matter may be subjected to a committee of evidence if processed meanwhile. Potential trouble sources and disconnection. The subject and technology of disconnection is thoroughly covered in PTSness and disconnection, and in the basic technical materials referenced therein. Unwarranted or threatened disconnection has the recourse of the person or group being disconnected from requesting a committee of evidence from the nearest convening authority or HCO and producing to the committee any evidence of actual material assistance to Scientology without reservation or bad intent. The committee must be convened if requested. The real motives of suppressive persons have been traced to quite sordid hidden desires. In one case, the wife wanted her husband's death so she could get his money and fought Scientology because it was making the husband spiritually well. Without handling the wife or the connection with the woman, the Scientologist, as family, drifted on with the situation, and the wife was able to cause a near destruction of Scientology in that area by false testimony to the police and government and press. Therefore, this is a serious thing. To tolerate or remain connected to a source of active suppression of a Scientologist or Scientology without standardly handling or acting to expose the true motives behind the hostility and reform the person. No money particularly may be accepted as donation or loan from a person who is family to a suppressive person and therefore a potential trouble source. There is no source of trouble in Scientology's history greater than this one for frequency and lack of attention. Anyone absolved of suppressive acts by an amnesty or a committee of evidence ceases to be declared suppressive. Anyone found guilty of suppressive acts by a committee of evidence and its convening authorities remains declared unless saved by an amnesty. The policy herein is calculated to prevent future distractions of this nature as time goes on. Rights of a suppressive person or group. A truly suppressive person or group has no rights of any kind as Scientologists. However, a person or group may be falsely labeled a suppressive person or group. Should the person or group claim the label to be false, he, she, or they may request a committee of evidence via their nearest Continental Justice Chief. The executive with the power to convene a committee of evidence must do so if one is requested for recourse or redress of wrongs. The person or representative of the group labeled suppressive is named as an interested party to the committee. They attend it where it convenes. The committee must pay attention to any actual evidences that the person or group that is accused of being suppressive may produce, particularly to the effect of having helped Scientology or Scientologists or a Scientologist, and if this is seen to outweigh the accusations, proof or lack of it, the person is absolved. Any knowingly false testimony, forgeries, or false witnesses introduced by the person or group accused of being suppressive can result in an immediate finding against the person or group. Any effort to use copies of the testimony or findings of a committee of evidence called for this purpose or holding it to scorn in a civil court immediately reverses any favorable finding and automatically labels the person or group suppressive. If the findings, as passed upon by the convening authority and the International Justice Chief, demonstrate guilt, the person or group is so labeled as a suppressive person or group. Failing to prove guilt of suppressive acts, the committee must recommend to absolve the person or group publicly. When a person, by some circumstance, has been incorrectly declared, then after he has had a committee of evidence and the suppressive person declare order has been cancelled, he may, if he wishes, request a board of review, who, upon full review of the matter, may, if warranted, ask for the return of lost pay or status the person may have experienced while incorrectly declared a suppressive person. See Board of Review. Recourse of a potential trouble source. A person labeled a potential trouble source and so barred from receiving auditing may request a committee of evidence of the nearest Continental Justice Chief via HCO as recourse if he or she contests the allegation. The committee of evidence requested must be convened by the nearest convening authority. If evidences of disconnection are given, the committee of evidence findings and recommendations and the convening authority, once the findings are duly approved, must remove the label of potential trouble source from the Scientologist. If the alleged suppressive person or group is clearly and beyond reasonable doubt shown not to be guilty of suppressive acts or is shown clearly to have reformed, the committee of evidence must recommend removal of the label suppressive person or group from the suspected person or group. However, once a person or group has been declared suppressive by an authorized published order, the removal or lifting of the declare order or label must be approved by the International Justice Chief. But should the former potential trouble source's state of case show no gain after reasonable time in processing, any executive of Division 4, Training and Processing, may order a new committee of evidence in the matter, and if it and its convening authority recommend to reverse the former findings, and if such findings are approved on international justice lines, the labels are applied. But no auditor may be disciplined for auditing either during the period between the two findings. Recourse of an auditor. An auditor disciplined for processing a potential trouble source or a suppressive person or a member of a suppressive group may request a committee of evidence if he can persuade the potential trouble source and the suppressive person or a representative of the suppressive group to appear before it. The auditor so requesting may also have named as an interested party or parties with himself the person or persons who supplied the information or misinformation concerning his actions. No damages or costs may be borne by or ordered by a committee of evidence in cases involving potential trouble sources or suppressive persons or groups. When the potential trouble source or suppressive person or group representative fails to appear before a committee of evidence on a bill of particulars labeling persons as potential trouble sources or suppressive persons or groups at the published time of its convening, the bill of particulars stands as proven and the convening authority is bound so to declare. Evidence of disconnection. Any HCO secretary may receive evidences of disconnection or disavowal, and, on finding them to be bona fide, must place copies of such evidences in the ethics file and in the CF, Central Files, folders of all persons named in them. The disconnecting person then ceases to be a potential trouble source, once any additional PTS handling of a technical nature required by the case supervisor has been successfully completed. The procedure for a recanting suppressive person or group is outlined above. Evidences of suppression. It is wise for any Scientologist, HCO secretary, or committee of evidence in matters concerning suppressive acts to obtain valid documents, letters, testimonies duly signed and witnessed, affidavits duly sworn to, and other matters and evidences which would have weight in a court of law. Momentary spite, slander suits, charges of Scientology separating families, etc., are then guarded against. If matters concerning suppressive acts are given good and alert attention, properly enforced, they will greatly accelerate the growth of Scientology and bring a new calmness to its people and organizations and far better case gains where they have not heretofore been easy to achieve. Pre-clears with present-time problems, ARC broken with associated but suppressive persons will not obtain case gains, but, on the contrary, may experience great difficulty. Observance of these facts and disciplines can help us all. Nothing in the policy herein shall ever or under any circumstances justify any violation of the laws of the land or intentional legal wrongs. Any such offense shall subject the offender to penalties prescribed by law, as well as to ethics and justice actions. Training and processing regulations. Technical discipline. Students' questions. 1. The only answers permitted to a student's demand for verbal technical data or unusual solutions are: the material is in HCOB, policy letter, or tape. What does your material state? What word did you miss in the bulletin, policy letter, or tape? And for requests for unusual auditing solutions, what did you actually do? Any other answer by technical secretaries, Ds of T, instructors, or course personnel is a misdemeanor. 2. Any instructor teaching or advising any method not contained in HCOBs or on tapes, or slighting existing HCOBs, policy letters, or tapes may be charged with a crime. 3. Any instructor in any way obscuring the source of technology by wrongly attributing it may be found guilty of a false report. Staff auditor's actions. 4. Any staff auditor who runs any process on any org PC that is not given in grade and level HCOBs may be charged by the TechSec or DFP with a misdemeanor. 5. Any alteration or non-standard rendition of a process is a misdemeanor. 6. Any staff auditor running a PC above the PC's grade instead of for the next grade, or running processes out of sequence in a grade, may be charged with a misdemeanor. 7. Any staff auditor reporting falsely, verbally or in writing, on an auditor's report may be charged with a crime. 8. Any staff auditor turning in an illegible report may be charged with a no report, which is a misdemeanor. 9. Any staff auditor attesting falsely to TA or falsely reporting the flattening of a process may be charged with a misdemeanor. 10. Any staff auditor who receives orders to run an illegal process must report the matter at once to HCO Ethics, requesting that the person so advising be charged with endangering the staff auditor's job and repute. Student regulations. 11. Former regulations, prior to April 1965, for students are abolished. 12. Students are covered as Scientologists by the HCO ethics codes and may request recourse from injustice and have the same privileges as any field Scientologist. 13. TechSecs, Ds of T, supervisors, and instructors, as well as Qualifications Division personnel, may request a court of ethics from the Department of Inspection and Reports for any student they find it necessary to discipline under the HCO justice codes, such discipline being in lieu of a committee of evidence. However, the student may request a committee of evidence instead if he or she feels a wrong is being done. 14. Any student knowingly altering technology, applying processes improperly, or using technology illegally on HGC PCs, on lower unit students, or the public while a student may be charged with a misdemeanor. 15. A student damaging another by willful application of incorrect technology may be charged by his supervisors with a crime, and a court of ethics action must be requested by his supervisors. 16. A student falsely enrolling may be charged by the org with a crime. 17. Blowing a course is handled under suppressive acts. If so charged, the student may have recourse if applied for before 60 days to the Department of Inspection and Reports Ethics Section. Pre-clear regulations. 18. Pre-clears are covered by HCO justice codes. 19. A pre-clear may have recourse when feeling unjustly wronged by applying to the ethics section of the Department of Inspection and Reports of the org. 20. A pre-clear refusing to answer an auditing question may be charged by the staff auditor with a no report and taken before a court of ethics at once. 21. An HGC or staff pre-clear must report flagrant breaches of the auditor's code to the ethics section of the org, but if the report is false beyond reasonable doubt, the pre-clear may be charged with a suppressive act. 22. A student pre-clear or HGC pre-clear blowing an org without reporting to the TechSec, DFP, or the ethics section first, and who will not permit any auditor to handle the matter at the org where the auditing occurred, must be fully investigated at any cost by HCO in the PC's own area. The auditing session must be fully investigated by the ethics section. And if any auditor's code breaks are found to have occurred in that auditing, the auditor may be brought before a court of ethics. The entire matter and its final results must be reported to the Office of LRH and higher authorities as called for in policy. 23. Charges against HGC or student pre-clears may also be made by the Tech Sec, the Qualifications Sec, Ds of T, Ds of P, supervisors, and staff auditors. Qualifications Division. 24. Any person undergoing review is subject to the same actions as in the HGC or Academy, and any personnel of the Qualifications Division may charge students and PCs under the Justice Codes and bring them before a court of ethics. 25. Persons charged by Qualifications Division personnel may request recourse if wronged. 26. The Qualifications Division may request a court of ethics on Technical Division personnel, pre-clears, and students for false reports, false attestations, and no reports, as well as other justice matters. And the Technical Division personnel may, on their part, request a court of ethics on Qualifications Division personnel, students, or pre-clears. This policy does not change any HCO codes of justice, but only augments them for the purposes of assisting peaceful and effective training and processing with the exact technology issued. Ethics and Study Tech. The basic why of the majority of cases of post-non-performance of a staff member and out-tech in an org stems from misunderstood words. The primary point that has to be gotten in is study tech. This is also our bridge to society. Yet study tech is the tech that includes misunderstood word tech. Thus, if study tech is not in, people on staffs see nothing wrong with hearing or reading orders containing words they do not understand and have no urge to look them up. Further, they often feel they do know words that they in fact do not know. When this situation exists, it is next to impossible to get study tech and word clearing tech in. For the orders seeking to get in study tech may contain words the person does not understand. Thus, he doesn't really comply with the orders, and study tech does not get in. Thus, the ability to hear or read and understand continues to be missing. Therefore, these ethics actions become part of standard ethics. 1. A person may be summoned to a court of ethics or executive court of ethics if it be found that he has gone past a word he does not understand when receiving, hearing, or reading an order, HCOB, policy letter, or tape, any and all LRH written or printed materials, including books, PABs, dispatches, telexes, and memeo issues, which resulted in a failure to do duties of his post without his at once making an effective effort to clear the words on himself, whether he knew he was missing them or not, as the source of his inaction or damaging actions. The charge is neglecting to clarify words not understood. 2. A staff member who does not use study tech or get it known while studying or instructing may be summoned to a court of ethics or an executive court of ethics. The charge is failure to employ study tech. 3. A student alterizing or misadvising others on the use of study tech may be summoned before a court of ethics. The charge is advocating a misuse or neglect of proper study tech. 4. An auditor failing to clear each and every word of every command or list used may be summoned before a court of ethics. The charge is out tech. 5. Any public division person, staff member, or Scientologist found using terms, circumstances, or data on raw public in public lectures or promotion or in PR beyond the public ability to grasp without stressing study tech or at once taking effective measures to clarify or releasing materials broadly to a wrong public may be summoned to a court of ethics if any flap or upset results. The charge is failure to apply study tech in dissemination. Suppressive. Furthermore, as study tech is our primary bridge to society and the basic prevention of out-tech and out-admin, if any offense, as above, found guilty in a court of ethics is repeated, and the person has had 2 such courts on this offense, the person may be summoned before a committee of evidence on a charge of committing an act or omission undertaken to knowingly suppress, reduce, or impede Scientology or Scientologists, and if found guilty beyond reasonable doubt, may be declared a suppressive person and expelled with full penalties. Axiom 28. Failures to teach or use study tech or alterations of study tech are actually offenses against Axiom 28 as it is applied internally in an org on admin and tech and from the org to society. Study tech, including its technology of word clearing, is in fact the technology of Axiom 28. The axiom, amended, follows. Axiom 28. Communication is the consideration and action of impelling an impulse or particle from source point across a distance to receipt point, with the intention of bringing into being at the receipt point a duplication and understanding of that which emanated from the source point. The formula of communication is cause, distance, effect, with intention, attention, and duplication with understanding. The component parts of communication are consideration, intention, attention, cause, source point, distance, effect, receipt point, duplication, understanding, the velocity of the impulse or particle, nothingness or somethingness. A non-communication consists of barriers. Barriers consist of space, interpositions, such as walls and screens of fast-moving particles, and time. A communication, by definition, does not need to be two-way. When a communication is returned, the formula is repeated, with the receipt point now becoming a source point and the former source point now becoming a receipt point. Study tech and post. It has been found that certain staff could not perform their duties because they knowingly went by misunderstood words in dispatches and telexes. By this willful failure, they had dumped their hats on seniors for 2 years. They were wiped out on post, could not evaluate or find out what was going on, and spent a bulk of their time sleeping. Therefore, 6. Any person who goes by misunderstood words or abbreviations in telexes or dispatches or materials he handles on post without clarifying them shall be summoned to a court of ethics. The charge is neglect of duty, and the minimum sentence is treason. 7. Any auditor failing to write clearly on worksheets or put down enough text to make the worksheet understandable shall be summoned to a court of ethics. The charge is no report. 8. Any case supervisor who permits an auditor to write incomprehensibly or omit data shall be summoned to a court of ethics. The charge is condoning neglect of duty. Additional penalty. Whenever these points are found to be out in an area and not enforced, there can be no plea of ignorance, and the seniors of the area are themselves liable to COMEV. Violations of study tech and failures to use this technology are responsible for great losses and out-tech, out-admin, and overwork of seniors. The matter has been regarded too lightly and has caused great losses, blows, and has impeded progress on this planet. Chapter 13. Scientology Justice Procedures. Administering Justice. There are some things to firmly keep in mind when you have to use HCO's justice function. 1. Only the criminally inclined desire a society in which the criminal is free to do as he pleases. 2. Only the criminally inclined are frightened enough of justice to protest and complain that it exists. 3. Without order, nothing can grow or expand. 4. Justice is one of the guards that keeps the channel of progress a channel and not a stopped flow. 5. All reactive minds can exert pain and discomfort on a being. They demand the suppression of the good and the production of the bad. Therefore, in administering justice, restrain just a trifle more than a bank can compel a bad action. The external threat need be just enough to make the internal pressure to do wrong the lesser of two discomforts. Judgment lies in how much external restraint to apply. 6. Decent people are in favor of justice. Don't confuse the opinion of the majority who wish it with the snarls of the few who fear it. 7. A person who is dramatizing his criminal intent can become very angry if he is not prevented from hurting others. 8. A Thetan is good. He invented a bank to keep others good. That mechanism went wrong, and that's why we're here. 9. In a session, you would keep a burglar from bursting in the room and disturbing the pre-clear. In Scientology, you keep offenders out so we can get on with our session with society. 10. Look up the person who rails against justice most, and you will have the one you have been looking for. 11. The only overt in handling justice is not to work for the greatest good of the greatest number. Committees of Evidence, Scientology Jurisprudence, Administration of. This system is for use in all matters of justice in Scientology. There can be no personal security without easily accessible, swift, and fair justice within a group. The jurisprudence employed must be competent, acceptable to the members of the group, and effective in accomplishing good order for the group and personal rights and security for its individual members. Justice used for revenge, securing advantages for a clique, increases disorder. Justice should serve as a means of establishing guilt or innocence and awarding damages to the injured. The fact of its use should not pre-establish guilt or award. Justice, which by its employment alone establishes an atmosphere of guilt or greed, is harmful and creates disorder. Justice should clarify. Good justice, in effect, runs out group engrams. Bad justice runs them in. I have been working for some time on a system of justice acceptable to Scientologists and have evolved one in committees of evidence. These work excellently by actual test and satisfy the requirements of justice. I require that full use be made of these committees in all matters relating to Scientology organizations, groups, and concerns. I do not recommend that individuals in authority act in disciplinary measures or capacities without employing committees of evidence. Definitions. A committee of evidence. A fact-finding body composed of impartial persons, properly convened by a convening authority, which hears evidence from persons it calls before it, arrives at a finding, and makes a full report and recommendation to its convening authority for his or her action. Convening authority. That duly appointed official of Scientology who appoints and convenes a committee of evidence to assist him in carrying out and justly exercising his or her authority, and who approves, mitigates, or disapproves the findings and recommendations of the committee of evidence he or she appoints. The convening authority may not be a member of the committee and may not sit with it and may not interfere with its conduct of business or its evidence, but may disband a committee he or she convenes if it fails to be active in the prosecution of its business and may convene another committee in its place. The convening authority may not increase penalties recommended by the committee he or she convenes. No convening authority may be summoned before, appear before, or be chairman, secretary, or member of any committee of evidence he or she convenes. No official authorized to act as a convening authority may be summoned before or named as an interested party to, or witness before, or serve on a committee of evidence at the level of committee of evidence he or she is authorized to convene or on any lower-level committee. An official with the right to act as a convening authority may only be summoned by, appear before, or become an interested party before committees of evidence of higher levels than he may authorize. The different levels of committees of evidence are contained and described in HCO policy letters and directives as issued by Senior HCO International. Chairman of the Committee. The chairman is appointed at the discretion of the convening authority appointing the committee. The appointment may be of a permanent nature, but again at the discretion of the convening authority. The chairman may not appoint members to serve on the committee. The chairman presides over all meetings, conducts the largest part of the interrogation, and sees that the committee properly executes its duties in all respects in a dignified and expeditious manner. The chairman may not interfere with the votes of the members and must include any divergences of opinion on the findings by dissenting members. The chairman sees to it that the findings are based on majority opinion. The chairman votes only in case of a deadlock. The chairman may himself dissent from the majority opinion in the findings, but, if so, includes it as a separate opinion in the findings like any other member dissenting, and may not withhold findings from the convening authority for this reason. If a chairman is removed during the progress of any case before the committee, the findings are invalid, and a new committee must be convened, and appearance before the incompleted hearings does not bar appearance before the newly convened committee. However, a chairman must be removed before findings are being prepared before the committee can be declared invalid, and the removal must be for good and sufficient cause. The chairman runs good SCS during all proceedings, and gets evidence given rather than put in lines. He gets the job done. Secretary. The secretary is appointed specifically by the convening authority. The secretary is a proper member of the committee and has a vote. The Secretary prepares and issues all notices to attend, attends all meetings, keeps all notes, collects all documentary evidence offered in the hearings, procures tapes and a tape recorder, does all the tape recording, and collects all members of the committee for scheduled hearings. All this is in addition to usual staff duties. Member. Members of the committee are specifically named by the convening authority. In addition to the chairman and secretary, they may not number less than 2 or more than 5. A member attends all hearings, may keep his own notes, passes on all findings, and votes for or against the findings and their recommendations. A member must sign the findings, whether he approves of them or not, but if disapproving, may have the chairman so noted. Interested parties and witnesses may not object to any membership or composition of the committee, it being taken for granted that the convening authority has been as impartial in this as is feasible. The member should conduct himself or herself courteously and with dignity toward other committee members and particularly the chairman, and should treat interested parties and witnesses as courteously as is possible with due recognition of the tension these may be under. By the member, any interested party who might be subject to charges is treated as not guilty until the last evidences have been heard and the committee meets to discuss its findings and their preparation. The member may question any interested party or witness, but usually leaves this to the chairman. The member may also write a question he or she wants asked and pass it to the chairman. If a member truly does not understand some point of evidence toward the end of the hearings, he or she may demand the recall of anyone to clarify the matter, but may not unduly extend the hearings by using this as a device. A member should not discuss the hearings abroad or form an early opinion and discuss it outside hearings as a fact. No member should be permitted to express his own opinion as that of the committee outside the hearings while they are in progress. A chairman may discipline a member for failing to appear at his committee's hearings, discourteous, foul, or slovenly conduct, or dishonesty when these imperil the functions or values of committees of evidence. Evidence. The spoken word, writings, and documents are to be considered as evidence. The e-meter is not to be used to procure evidence, as it does not register lies on criminal types, and, however vital and reliable as an auditing aid, is not always valid in detecting crime or acts. It can react on the flustered innocent and fail to react on the cold-blooded guilty. The reason for this is that it is inoperative during severe ARC breaks, in which condition interested parties often are. Session withholds may not be used as evidence, but evidence may not be refused because it also has been given in a session. Hearsay evidence, saying one heard somebody say that somebody else did, should not be admissible evidence, but statements that one heard another make damaging remarks or saw another act or fail to act are admissible. Interested party. A person, plaintiff, or defendant called before a committee of evidence for whom penalties may be recommended or decisions awarded by the committee. An interested party may not be called before another committee or a later convened committee for the same offense or complaint after having been summoned and heard for that offense or his complaint at one or more meetings of the current committee. It may be that the committee does not charge an interested party with an offense or award a decision, but if so, must either implicate or exonerate fully all interested parties to the hearing and recommend accordingly in its findings. It is common to have more than one interested party named in any matter brought to a committee. Being named as an interested party does not imply guilt, but may result in becoming the subject of disciplinary recommendation or award by the committee. To eventually be charged by the committee or awarded a decision, a person must have been named as an interested party in the bill of particulars before the matter is heard by the committee, except for failure to appear or false witness. An interested party is liable to penalty recommendation by the committee. Refusal or failure of an interested party to appear results in a recommendation of the full penalty possible in the case for that interested party. A person not named as an interested party in the original bill of particulars may not become an interested party to the action before the committee by reason of new evidence. He or she would have to be specifically charged before a newly convened committee. Witness. A witness is anyone who is called before the committee to give evidence who is not an interested party. A witness may not be implicated or charged if not already named in the bill of particulars as an interested party, except for failure to appear or when found to be a false witness. A witness who refuses to appear or refuses to testify may be separately charged for that failure, and the committee may recommend any fitting discipline for such a defaulting witness. For false witness, see below. Bill of Particulars. A written and signed appointment of a committee of evidence naming 1. The chairman, secretary, and members of the committee, 2. The interested party or parties, 3. The matter to be heard and a summary of data to hand. It is duly signed by the convening authority, and a copy of it is furnished to each person whose name appears in it and to local legal files. Findings. The full report of the committee, accompanied by a tape recording of the evidence given and a full recommendation to the convening authority for his action. The findings is a document which gives a fast summary of the hearings, their result, and a complete recommendation. It must be so written that it may be published without alteration by the convening authority. The summary states who appears to be at fault and who does not, and why. The recommendation tells the convening authority exactly what disciplinary action should be taken and how, including any plea for leniency or insistence upon full penalty. The findings is done after the last hearing and after the last committee meeting that votes on the recommendation to be given. It is done by the secretary from his or her notes, but under the guidance of the chairman. It is done as soon after the last committee meeting as possible, is signed by committee members, and promptly forwarded to the convening authority. Only one copy is prepared and forwarded to the convening authority. No other copies are made or given anyone. Before forwarding to the convening authority, it is signed by every member of the committee as well as the chairman and secretary. Accompanied by any tapes or documents, it is placed directly into the hands of the convening authority. It may not go by dispatch line or mail. It is not accompanied by any other letter of transmission or by any delegation or by the committee in person. It may be delivered by the secretary or chairman or their specially appointed messenger without further comment. Endorsement. The findings now have added to them the endorsement by the convening authority. The findings have no force until the endorsement is added. The convening authority makes the endorsement on the findings in as brief a fashion as possible. The convening authority can 1. Accept the findings in full, 2. Reduce the penalty recommended, or 3. Suspend or cancel the penalty completely with a pardon. The convening authority may make no other endorsement, save only to thank the committee and witnesses. The moment the findings are endorsed, they have the effect of orders as per the endorsement, and all persons under the authority of the convening authority are bound to execute them and abide by them accordingly. Publication. The findings and their endorsement are published according to the directions of the convening authority. They are first mimeographed. Publication is done in 3 ways. 1. By posting a copy on the staff board or public board and copies to executives. 2. By circulation in any area affected. 3. By Continental Magazine or other broad means. However it is published, a mimeographed copy goes to every interested party or witness and to each committee member. Files. The original, all spare mimeograph copies and any documents and tapes are placed in a large envelope and filed in the valuable documents file of the organization. Their loss could prejudice the convening authority in any review. This envelope may be called for by any upper committee reviewing the case. Review. Any committee of evidence findings and convening authority endorsement may be subject to review by any upper-level committee. Review must be applied for by anyone named as an interested party, but no other, and only if a penalty was recommended, whether endorsed or not. A committee of evidence for review is convened and handled in exactly the same way as an ordinary committee of evidence, but it cannot call new or even old witnesses or the interested parties. All it can do is listen to the tapes of the hearings, examine the evidence given in the original hearings, and recommend to its own convening authority one of 2 things. 1. That a new committee be convened on the site by the upper convening authority to examine points thought to be in question. 2. That the penalty be changed. A committee of evidence review can recommend to increase or decrease the penalty. In event of a review, the convening authority of the committee of review endorses the review findings, and this new endorsement now takes precedence over the old endorsement and must be complied with by the original convening authority. Review should be rapid. An applicant for review should understand its risk. False witness. Anyone found to be knowingly testifying falsely becomes at once an interested party to the hearings and may receive a penalty commensurate with that which would have been recommended for an interested party to that hearing. Types of bills. A committee may hear any civil or criminal matter or dispute within the realm of Scientology, whether the parties are connected with an organization or not. Libel, estranging marital partners, dismissals, debt, theft, mayhem, violations of codes, deprivation of income, or any dispute or harmful improper action of any kind may be heard. Plaintiffs and defendants are alike interested parties in any such hearing. It is only necessary that the convening authority issue a bill of particulars on the matter. The convening authority should always issue a bill of particulars on all matters harmful to persons under his or her sphere of influence, rather than attempt to independently adjudicate the matter. Anyone can call such a matter to the attention of a convening authority, or the convening authority may act to convene a committee on his or her own observation without complaint being given to the convening authority. Independent, offhand justice by a convening authority should be held to a minimum, and all such subjects should be made the business of a committee of evidence. Summary. Purpose. A committee of evidence is convened by any major executive of Scientology, with or without anyone filing a complaint, in order to handle any and all personal or organizational or field matters requiring justice. Formation. The committee is composed of a chairman, secretary, and 2 to 5 committee members appointed by the convening authority. Procedure of committee. The convening authority sets out in its instruction to the committee, Bill of Particulars, the matter to be investigated and supplies any information already available, together with names of any person known to be involved or requesting justice, interested parties. The committee meets as soon as possible and at times which will cause the least interference with normal work. At the first meeting, the instructions and information are examined, and the committee decides what further information it will require to arrive at a conclusion and what information requires confirmation. It then decides who shall be called to give evidence. The secretary is instructed to warn witnesses and let them know when and where they will be required. In subsequent short meetings, when witnesses appear before the committee, the chairman should put the questions and keep them to the point. When he has completed his questions, he invites other members to ask any questions they feel will help the committee. They do not have to ask questions and should only ask relevant questions. Finally, the chairman asks the witness if there is any more information he or she wants to give, or if there is anything he or she wants to say to correct any wrong impression he or she feels the committee may have. The secretary takes notes of these proceedings, and in addition, a tape record can be made if the convening authority or chairman considers it advisable, which it usually is. When the committee has assembled all the evidence it needs, it has a final meeting to prepare a report. In practice, it will be found best for one member, the chairman, the secretary, or a member appointed by the chairman, to prepare a draft report prior to the final meeting and for the committee to use this as a basis for discussion. The report, the findings, should include findings and a recommendation and is sent together with the evidence and any tapes to the convening authority. Actions of convening authority. From the evidence and findings, the convening authority judges whether or not the evidence is complete and if the findings and recommendations are in keeping with the evidence. He assumes that the committee has done its job thoroughly, and unless there is a blatant apparent miscarriage of justice, he endorses the findings and instructs an appropriate executive to carry out the recommendations and how to publish the matter. If anyone feels aggrieved by the findings of a committee, the aggrieved person may have the case reviewed by the next higher authority, but should be apprised of the risk. If after review they are still aggrieved, they can have the case reviewed by Senior HCO International and thence to L. Ron Hubbard. For further levels of recourse, see Chapter Conduct of Justice and Forms of Redress. Board of Investigation. The purpose of a Board of Investigation is to help LRH discover the cause in any conflict, poor performance, or down statistic. Composition. A Board of Investigation is composed of not less than 3 and not more than 5 members. A majority of the members must be senior to the persons being investigated, except when this is impossible. Conduct. The board may investigate by calling in a body on the persons concerned or by sitting and summoning witnesses or principals. Function. A board of investigation is a much less serious affair than a committee of evidence. Persons appearing before it are not under duress or punishment. The whole purpose is to get at the facts. No disciplinary measure may result except for false attestation. The board may recommend an executive ethics hearing or an ethics hearing if crimes or high crimes are found, but may take no action on errors or misdemeanors. False attestation before a board must result in an executive ethics hearing or ethics hearing. Findings. The findings of a board of investigation are sent to the convening authority, and from this orders can be issued or the convening authority can request action or policy from higher authority. The method of making policy is not changed. Form. In all other ways, the form of a board, its orders, conduct, and finding is the same as in a committee of evidence. Committee of Evidence. A committee of evidence is convened on the subject of a known crime or high crime, as it has come to be looked on and is a trial by jury, there being a charge. A board may recommend a committee of evidence. The complete body of Scientology ethics and justice technology on boards of investigation includes regulations on who may convene and be subject to their authority. Any persons convening a board of investigation are required to abide by all policy on the subject, and any individual subject to a board has access to all policy on the subject. Courts of Ethics and Ethics Hearings. A court of ethics may be convened by any ethics officer. Any Scientologist of the status of officer or below may be summoned before a court of ethics. The summons is issued as an HCO ethics order. It must state when and where the person is to appear. A court of ethics is convened on matters as follows. 1. Any misdemeanor. 2. Any crime. High crimes are not accorded a court of ethics, but may be accorded an ethics hearing. A court of ethics may direct discipline as follows. A. Not to be trained or processed for blank weeks or blank months. B. An amends petition be submitted. C. Suspension for blank weeks. D. Repayment of loans or debts. E. Restitution of wrongs. F. Damages to be paid another of an equitable sum commensurate with the loss. Executive Court of Ethics. Convened in the same way and with the same powers and disciplines, an Executive Court of Ethics is convened by the Office of LRH via the HCO Executive Secretary. The presiding person must be at or above the rank of the person summoned. A Court of Ethics may not summons a director, a secretary, or an executive secretary. An Executive Court of Ethics only may be convened on a director, secretary, or executive secretary. The Executive Ethics Court is presided over by a secretary or executive secretary as appointed for that one court and one purpose by the Office of LRH via the HCO Executive Secretary. An Executive Ethics Court may also be convened at the request of a secretary or executive secretary on any staff member by requesting same of the Office of LRH via the Ethics Officer, but another is appointed to preside, and there is no necessity for the Office of LRH to comply with such a request. Ethics Hearing. An ethics hearing may be convened by an ethics officer to obtain data for further action or inaction. The order is issued as an HCO ethics order. The time and place of the ethics hearing is stated in the order. The purpose of the hearing is stated. Interested parties are named. An ethics hearing may name witnesses but not the person's immediate superiors to appear against him in person, but may consider a written statement by a superior. An ethics hearing has no power to discipline but may advise on consequences. If doubt exists in the matter of whether or not a misdemeanor or crime or suppression has occurred, it will be usual to convene an ethics hearing or executive ethics hearing, not a court of ethics. Executive Ethics Hearing. No one of the rank of director or above may be summoned for an ethics hearing, but only an executive ethics hearing, presided over by a person superior in rank. It is convened by the Office of LRH via the HCO ExecSec. The same rank in a senior org is a senior rank. Statistics. A court of ethics or executive court of ethics is not a fact-finding court. One is convened solely on statistics and known evidence. If adequate statistics do not exist, then an ethics hearing or a committee of evidence is convened to obtain or discount evidence. The ordinary reasons for convening a court of ethics would consist of A. Too many reports on a person. See staff member reports. B. Observed commission of a misdemeanor or a crime. C. Demand by a person's superior to handle a crime. D. Debt. E. Disputes between two Scientologists of similar rank. F. Continuing an emergency. No demotion, transfer, or dismissal. A court of ethics or an executive court of ethics may not order transfer, demotion, or dismissal. This may only be done by a committee of evidence duly convened. A court of ethics or an executive court of ethics may, however, suspend a staff member from post for a reasonable length of time. In a suspension, recourse may be had and restoration of pay lost if a committee of evidence is convened and reverses the decision. No recourse from a court. There is no recourse from the decision of a court legally rendered and based on statistics. If a staff member accumulates too many adverse reports, or if his unit, section, department, or division statistics have remained down, or if a state of emergency was continued, there is no acceptable evidence that refutes it that could be heard by a committee of evidence, as evidence is evidence. PTS and SP. Potential trouble sources and suppressive persons are not necessarily accorded a court or a hearing, but they may have one if they request it. But the only action will be to determine or confirm the actual status, and the action is already laid down by firm, unalterable policy in any case. Chaplain's Court, Civil Hearings. As many matters come before ethics which are not properly ethics but civil matters, i.e. between other persons, a chaplain's court is formed in the public division. In the Scientology system of justice, the chaplain's court offers expedient resolution to civil matters of dispute between individual Scientologists, while keeping such outside of usual civil court proceedings. Bringing civil court proceedings against another Scientologist is a violation of the justice codes of Scientology. See the Scientology Justice Codes and their application. Further, the World Institute of Scientology Enterprises, WISE, was later established to specifically handle matters of business dispute among Scientologists. Membership in WISE is a requirement, and failure to be a member of WISE does not, however, absolve an individual of the policy prohibiting suit against another Scientologist. A permanent presiding justiciary, who must be a minister, may be appointed, called an arbiter, where activities warrant. The chaplain, or the permanent or part-time assisting arbiter, presides over all court hearings and renders judgment. The organization of this activity is similar to any civil proceedings, and may, when conditions warrant, have clerks and other personnel. The court may charge reasonable fees, and has these as its statistic. Only civil matters may be heard or judged. All ethics matters must be referred to ethics. Justice. Reasonably priced and easily obtained justice are requisites to any civilization. The purpose of the chaplain's court is to resolve matters of dispute between individuals. Staff personnel, PCs, students, and Scientologists may utilize this court to resolve their own disputes or legal affairs. Staff members may not be sued by reason of performance of their org duties, as this belongs to ethics where such complaints may be made. Any suit filed must be against the person who actually personally knew and damaged the individual suing by an action directed personally against the plaintiff, except for suits to remove ethics orders. The org, a division, department, or section may only be sued to obtain restoration of status, to revoke or alter ethics orders, or obtain service which was denied, such as auditing time to write an omission. The org or any part of it may not be sued for financial damages or refund. Preliminary hearings only can be given in divorce matters at this time, as these must also have state action before any such findings can be considered legal in the eyes of the state. However, separation may be found, both parties consenting. Collection of debt and remedy in defaulting on obligation may be sought from the court. Rebuttal damages. If a person who is sued has reason, he can, as defendant, require damages in his rebuttal. And should the suit be fallacious and found against the plaintiff, such may be awarded. Costs. Costs may be recovered as part of damages, meaning costs of court action. Extent of damages. Any damages assigned by the court must be reasonable and in keeping with reality. Ethics relations. Ethics may route civil matters to the chaplain's court. In return, in matters of perjury or the collection of damages awarded by the court may refer the matter to ethics. Refund suits. Suits for refund of donations may not be filed, as this is an ethics matter. LRH suits. Suits against LRH, board members, executive secretaries, or secretaries are not accepted by the court. Wrongful ethics actions. HCO may be sued in the court for erroneous issue of an ethics order and for no other action. Damages requested may not exceed $5 or an order apologizing or restoration of status. Bonus actions. All bonus matters or disputes between or amongst Tech, Qual, and Treasury or their personnel may be heard by the court. Staff member disputes. Personal disputes between staff members, even when org business is concerned, may be heard by the chaplain's court. Failure to abide. Failure to abide by a court finding may become an ethics matter. Jury. When requested and allowed by the chaplain, a jury of 3 persons may be chosen and used. The persons chosen must be agreed upon by both litigants. Attorneys. Anyone may act as an attorney in the court. Professional attorneys may appear before it. No attorney is required. Procedures. All procedures for the chaplain's court are developed by, and all magisterial appointments are made by, the chaplain in the form of public division executive directives. All fees are set in this manner. The chaplain and the court and such executive directives may be overruled only as authorized by policy. Chapter 14. Conduct of Justice and Forms of Redress. An operating standard rule. This is rigid policy, not advice. No matter how stiff the ethics action is you have to apply to keep the show on the road, remember this. You must keep the door open only if it's just a crack. Expulsion without hope of reinstatement puts people into total hopelessness. It may even be the reason governments eventually experience revolt. Expulsion without recourse leads to desperation and revolt. There must always be the hope of return to good graces, and all ethics orders or actions must state what the person has to do to be reinstated in good standing. Do not practice or permit discipline or expulsion with no hope of amends. Levels of ethics and justice actions. Ethics actions in degree of severity are as follows. 1. Noticing something non-optimum without mentioning it, but only inspecting it silently. 2. Noticing something non-optimum and commenting on it to the person. 3. Requesting information by ethics personnel. 4. Requesting information and inferring there is a disciplinary potential in the situation. 5. Talking to somebody about another derogatorily. 6. Talking to the person derogatorily. 7. Investigating in person by ethics. 8. Reporting on a post condition to ethics. 9. Reporting on a person to ethics. 10. Investigating a person by interrogating others about him. 11. Asking others for evidence about a person. 12. Publishing an interrogatory about a person that points out omissions or commissions of ethics offenses. 13. Assigning a lowered condition by limited publication. 14. Assigning a lowered condition by broad publication. 15. Investigating a person thoroughly in his or her own area. 16. Interrogation stated to be leading to a court of ethics. 17. Interrogation in a court of ethics. 18. Sentencing in a court of ethics. 19. Suspending a court of ethics sentence. 20. Carrying out a court of ethics discipline. 21. Suspension or loss of time. 22. A committee of evidence ordered. 23. A committee of evidence publicly ordered. 24. Holding a committee of evidence. 25. Findings by a committee of evidence. 26. Submitting findings of a committee of evidence for approval. 27. Waiting for the findings to be passed on or carried into effect. 28. Suspending findings for a period for review. 29. Modifying findings. 30. Carrying findings into effect. 31. Publishing findings. 32. Demotion. 33. loss of certificates or awards. 34. Denial of auditing or training by a ComEv for a considerable period of time. 35. Dismissal. 36. Expulsion from Scientology. The above is a rough guide to the severity of discipline. Note that none of it carries any physical punishment or detention. Short suspension of training or processing up to 90 days is considered under 18 above and is not to be compared with 34, where the time is measured in years. Just issuing the ethics codes is itself a sort of discipline, but it is more broadly welcomed than protested, as it means greater peace and faster accomplishment. Ethics review. Orders to auditing or training may not be made as a sentence or used in an ethics court or by a ComEv or any other reason. Auditing and training are awards. A student who is disruptive of discipline and acts contrary to the ethics codes may not be ordered to review by the Director of Processing, Director of Training, or ethics personnel or other persons in an org. Ordering students and PCs. Tech and qualifications personnel, particularly the TechSec and QualSec, and Director of Estimations, the Director of Processing, and Director of Training, Director of Examinations, and Director of Review, and Director of Certifications, may order students or PCs to review or to course or to HGC or anywhere in and around these two divisions without any ethics action being implied. It is just normal, done to get students and PCs on the road to higher levels. Ethics actions may only suspend training or deny auditing. Therefore, a student ordered to ethics for discipline who does not then give adequate promise and example of good behavior and compliance must be thoroughly investigated even to his or her own area and in the meanwhile may not be trained or processed. The student, however, may not be dismissed or expelled unless full ethics actions and procedures have been undertaken. All sentences carrying a denial of training or processing must carry a means of the right to be trained or processed, being restored in a specified time or under specified conditions. Students and PCs and ethics. The routine action of ethics is to request a reappraisal of behavior and a signed promise of good behavior for a specified time. If the student or PC refuses to so promise, then the next action of ethics is an investigation of the student's course or PC's processing behavior. When then confronted with the data, if the student still refuses to promise, ethics undertakes a full investigation in the student's or PC's own area. If the student or PC still refuses to cooperate, the student goes before a court of ethics, which may pass sentence. Recourse. Only after sentence has been passed by a legal body, such as a court of ethics or committee of evidence, or after an illegal disciplinary action, may a student or PC ask for recourse. Normally, before asking for recourse, a student or PC petitions the office of L. Ron Hubbard if unwilling to accept the discipline, but this must be done at once. If the petition is unfavorably acted upon, the student or PC may ask for recourse. Recourse must be requested of the convening authority that had local jurisdiction over the student or PC, and may not be requested of higher authority. A request to higher authority than the ethics activity that passed sentence is a petition, not recourse. ComEv. A committee of evidence is considered the most severe form of ethics action. One must not be idly threatened or requested. Only a ComEv can recommend suspension or remove certificates or awards or memberships or recommend dismissal. The Office of LRH passes on all ComEv findings before they can go into effect. A staff member may not be suspended or demoted or transferred illegally out of his division or dismissed without a committee of evidence. Only after that action or wrongful demotion, transfer, or dismissal, as above, may recourse be requested. Students or PCs, however, may be transferred, demoted in level or grade by a court of ethics. And the action of sending the student or PC to a court of ethics is, of course, a type of suspension which may be prolonged in the face of non-cooperation. A student or a PC is not a staff member in the ethics sense of the word by simple enrollment on a course or in an HGC or review. A staff member who is temporarily a student or PC in the academy or review or the HGC is not covered as a student or PC by his staff member status. He may be transferred about or demoted as a student or PC by tech and qual personnel or suspended as a student or PC by ethics. This, however, may not affect his staff member status as a staff member. Because he or she is transferred or demoted or suspended by tech personnel or ethics when a student or PC does not mean he or she may be transferred, demoted, or dismissed from his or her regular staff post unless the person's staff status permits it. Potential trouble sources. Staff members found to be potential trouble sources are handled like any other potential trouble source, but, unless provisional or temporary, may not be affected by this in their staff post. They are, of course, denied auditing or training until they handle or disconnect, but this may not also suspend, transfer, or dismiss them, unless of provisional or temporary status. This ethics action, the potential trouble source, is in lieu of any discipline and disciplinary actions that go beyond temporary suspension of training or processing until the matter is settled, must be undertaken by a court of ethics or a ComEv. ARC broken students or PCs. An ARC break is not an extenuating circumstance in ethics or disciplinary matters, and is only taken into account on the person of the auditor who made the ARC break and didn't repair it. The plea of ARC broken is inadmissible in any ethics matter as a defense or justification of misdemeanors, crimes, or high crimes. Light touch. Scientology ethics are so powerful in effect as determined by observation of it in use that a little goes a very long ways. Try to use the lightest form first. Students are quite caved in by it when it is applied, by actual observation. Our lines are too powerful and direct, and what we mean to a person's future, even while he or she is nattering, is so well understood down deep that ethics action is a far worse threat than mere WOG law. The being who is guilty knows with certainty that he is offending against the future of all, no matter what his surface manifestations or conduct. Further, while WOG law at the worst can only cause him or her some pain and a body by execution or one lifetime's loss of liberty, we threaten his eternity. Even while he screams at us, he knows this down deep. My first instance of this was a very dangerous psychotic who was largely responsible for a great deal of the public commotion in 1950. This person desisted and caved in the moment the thought was suggested to her by a non-Dianetic friend that she was threatening all mankind. She suddenly saw it as truth and instantly gave up all attacks and utterances. Even the fellow who could push the button on atomic war knows, really, it's only one lifetime per person he is blowing up, only one phase in Earth's existence he or she is destroying. That we exist here could actually restrain him. The mere destruction of a planet might not, as it's temporary. Our discipline is quite capable of driving a person around the bend because of what he or she is attacking. Therefore, we can all too easily make a person feel guilty by just a whisper. I've now seen a student, simply asked a question by ethics, promptly give up and ask for his ComEv and expulsion. He hadn't done more than a poor auditing job. Nobody was talking about a ComEv or expulsion, and he had not a bit of defiance in it. He just caved right in. You are threatening somebody with oblivion for eternity by expulsion from Scientology. Therefore, realize that an ethics action need not be very heavy to produce the most startling results. Down deep they know this, even when they are screaming at us. One suppressive person who had committed a high crime of some magnitude went quite insane after departing Scientology and then realizing what he had done. Therefore, use ethics lightly. It is chain lightning. Injustice. Any staff member who does not know ethics policy is a clay pigeon. Clay pigeons are used to throw up in the air and shoot at. The cycle is, goofs are made. The real why is not located or handled. And when this happens, angry executives who have to pick up the ball start shooting. Staff members are expected to do their jobs, and there are no excuses at all for not doing so. But it sometimes happens that injustices occur. Goofs happen, then conditions are assigned, persons are removed from post or otherwise bashed about. Usually this occurs because the staff member is pitifully ignorant of his rights. Justice is expected and has definite use. When a state of discipline does not exist, the whole group caves in. It has been noted continually that the failure of a group began with a lack of or loss of discipline. Without it, the group and its members die. Most people think discipline is bad because most WOG discipline is simply harsh injustice. Most people do not even know that justice means fair and equitable treatment for both the group and individual. Commercial firms and credit companies have a level of injustice that is hard to believe. One is never faced by his accusers and may not even know he is accused until he is shot. Psychiatry, as exposed in the brilliant book The Manufacture of Madness by Dr. Zaz, uses the justice procedures developed in the days of witch-burning, unknown accusers, opinions only, punished before being tried, etc. Psychiatric influence on contemporary court thinking may well be a major reason for the present disturbed condition of society. Lord forbid we ever fall into such barbarism ourselves. It is injustice that destroys discipline. When you indicate the wrong bypassed charge on a case, the case caves in. When you accuse wrongly and punish unjustly, the group caves in. The truth is, man cannot really be trusted with punishment. With it, he does not really seek discipline. He wreaks injustice. Many governments are so touchy about their divine rightness in judicial matters that you hardly open your mouth before they burst into uncontrolled violence. Getting into police hands is a catastrophe in its own right in many places, even when one is merely the plaintiff, much less the accused. Thus, social disturbance is at maximum in such areas. Only where a group has a buffer against injustice is it safe to use discipline. Posts are valuable to staff. Sudden removals, false condition assignments, and other actions can do more harm than they achieve good. Reversely, you can't expect a staff to fall all over a goofing staff member whose lack of performance upsets the lines and production. It does far more harm than good to let the situation continue without taking action. Between the points of harsh injustice and required discipline, there is a happy center ground where discipline, no matter how severe, is just, and where goofs are not tolerated. The achievement of this middle ground depends less upon educating and restraining executives than upon the staff member knowing his rights and himself using them. This is hard to get across because some senior can say, "That policy doesn't apply in this case," or "You report this and I'll have your head," or "I don't care what your rights are, you are removed." Then again, a review committee of evidence can be so slow it never handles in time or it never gets held. We are living, or trying to, in a very unjust culture, so most of our basic training was in injustice, not in correct discipline. So you cannot look for a total perfection of justice, but we can make it better and less unjust. Recourse. Recourse means a turning or applying to a person or thing for aid or security. Not only can one turn to a person, but one can turn to a thing or a procedure to set the matter right. In investigating why certain persons who had been posted did not do their post, it was found they had been told to do something else instead. They had done this something else. They did not know they had any recourse. Because they sought no recourse, it had to be assumed they had willingly accepted illegal orders, and so were comeved. Now, what is this point, "they sought no correction," of this obviously illegal order? They simply did not make it known. They did not have to fly in the face of the person. They did not have to refuse. The comev should have asked them, "Did you seek any recourse to being given an illegal order?" If the answer was no, they were a party to the damage. If the answer was yes, and they could prove it, they would have to be found innocent of intent, and the senior would have caught it. What form would the recourse have taken? A simple knowledge report to the ethics officer. "I have been given different orders in conflict with my post assignment and have made it known but am having to follow the illegal order," would have proofed them against severe action. By not taking recourse, the junior thereby made himself a party to the act. The above is not very effective, as it does not correct the order, and so some penalty would have leveled at the person. At the other end of maximum recourse, there would have been a telex to the senior HCO Continental or International stating, "Joe Blow ED will not let me take my post as ordered, but has made me an auditor." Whether this was acted on or not, it would absolve the person. He or she would have blown the whistle on his or her illegal orderer. He could not be punished for it or for taking the auditor post instead of the ordered has post. To understand recourse, one would have to know the seniority of orders. Policy in HCOPLs and HCOBs come first. Then there is international, continental, and local in descending order. The org board tells one at a local level. The higher names are, the more senior. If a person does not seek recourse for a wrong condition, a removal, an illegal order, a court, or a COMEV, and no matter how unjust the action is, the person has had it. You can't follow any legal order and or do other wrongs, get a COMEV, and expect much help. But if a court or COMEV is wrong in its findings, a person has recourse. He can ask for a review COMEV and must receive one. Out of sequence. To remove a person from post and then give him a court or COMEV him is out of sequence. The person has to have a court or COMEV before he can be removed. To assign a condition and then also COMEV is also out of sequence. One assigns a condition or a COMEV. Dismissals. Dismissals or offloads, once a person has been accepted as a staff member, require a court or a COMEV. If the findings are protested, there can be a review COMEV. The COMEV can send the person to a fitness board, or a fitness board can send a person to a COMEV. A fitness board has the power to prevent taking someone on staff in the first place. That needs no COMEV to reject. But the person so rejected can ask for a review COMEV. And if the person is on staff, one cannot be removed from post, sent before the fitness board and dismissed. It requires a court or COMEV to remove from post and or to send before a fitness board. Statistics. The best defense against any ethics action is good statistics. If one has no personal statistic, he is in a bad position and a very eligible clay pigeon if something goes wrong. When personal statistics are challenged as unreal or doesn't fit or falsified, one should have his section or department or divisional stat in very good shape indeed and point to that and not permit it to be bad, as it is more visible and reliable. Requested COMEV. Anyone can request a COMEV on himself for anything. An example would be an intern removed from course who does not believe he failed. He can request a COMEV. If he can prove he didn't, he has to be restored. If one is being shot at or regarded with contempt through false accusations, his first action would be to ask the ethics officer for a third-party investigation, and if that didn't work, request a COMEV to clear his name or repute, or to get himself rightfully shot for that matter. Example: someone is being kicked around. He can't handle it himself, so he requests a COMEV. This must be given him, and it must be swift. Seniors. A person has a right to be tried only by seniors in rank or status. Example: a Class 8 on a tech matter could not be legally tried by a COMEV whose chairman was a Class 0. Example: the TechSec cannot be tried by a COMEV chairmaned by a DFP or a court held by one of his auditors. An executive director or LRH Com have to be tried by the next senior org and cannot be tried in their own orgs at all. There have been flagrant violations of all these things. An executive director and LRH Com were once ripped off and sent home by being told it was an LRH order, which it was not. They did not stay on post and do the normal things like, "Let's see it in writing, signed," or "We must query," or "We request a COMEV." By not staying on post, by letting themselves be ripped off, by not using any recourse, they were actually guilty of desertion of post. They caught it from all sides by not using their rights. Summary. This is not a full list of procedures and legalities. All that is being set out here is that discipline is needful in a group. Injustice injures discipline. Injustice occurs when people permit it by not knowing or ignoring their rights and not seeking recourse or redress of wrongs. It is a pitiful scene where executives and ethics officers don't know or use correct justice, and where the staff members are ignorant of their rights or don't use them. The result is a complete loss of discipline no matter how many get hanged, or how many don't. So where ethics is out, one really need only check out execs and ethics officers on ethics policy and check out the staff on their rights, and some semblance of order will occur in the most disturbed scene. This is the remedy for better discipline and prosperity in a group, not more shootings of clay pigeons. It can be made a calm, happy scene. Justice, third-party and false reports. In an extension of third-party technology, see the third-party law, I have found that false reports and suppression are very important in third-party technology. We know that a third party is necessary to any quarrel. Basically, it is a three-terminal universe. In reviewing several org upsets, I have found that the third party can go completely overlooked, even in intensive investigation. A third party adds up to suppression by giving false reports on others. In several cases, an org has lost several guiltless staff members. They were dismissed or disciplined in an effort to solve turbulation. Yet the turbulence continued and the area became even more upset by reason of the dismissals. Running this back further, one finds that the real third party eventually unearthed got people shot by false reports. One source of this is as follows. Staff member X goofs. He is very furious and defensive at being accused. He blames his goof on somebody else. That somebody else gets disciplined. Staff member X diverts attention from himself by various means, including falsely accusing others. This is a third-party action which results in a lot of people being blamed and disciplined, and the real third party remaining undetected. The missing point of justice here is that the disciplined persons were not faced with their accusers and were not given the real accusation and so could not confront it. Another case would be a third party simply spreading tales and making accusations out of malice or some even more vicious motive. This would be a usual third-party action. It is ordinarily based on false reports. Another situation comes about when an executive who can't get an area straight starts to investigate, gets third-party false reports about it, disciplines people accordingly, and totally misses the real third party. This turbulates the area even more. The basis of all really troublesome third-party activities is, then, false reports. There can also be false perception. One sees things that don't exist and reports them as fact. Therefore, we see that we can readily run back an investigation by following a chain of false reports. In at least one case, the third party, discovered only after it was very plain that only he could have wrecked two divisions, one after the other, also had these characteristics. 1. Goofed in his own actions. 2. Furiously contested any knowledge reports or job endangerment chits filed on him. 3. Obsessively changed everything when taking over an area. 4. Falsely reported actions, accusing others. 5. Had a high casualty rate of staff in his division or area. These are not necessarily common to all third parties, but give you an idea of what can go on. After a lot of experience with ethics and justice, I would say that the real source of upset in an area would be false reports accepted and acted upon without confronting the accused with all charges and his or her accusers. An executive should not accept any accusation and act upon it. To do so undermines the security of one and all. What an executive should do on being presented with an accusation or downstats or evidence is conduct an investigation of false reports and false perceptions. An area is downstat because of one or more of the following. 1. No personnel. 2. Personnel not trained. 3. Cross orders. Senior orders unattended because of different junior orders. 4. Area doing something else than what it is supposed to do. 5. An adjacent area dumping its hat. 6. False perception leading to false stats. 7. False reports by rumor or misunderstanding. 8. False reports from single rare instances becoming accepted as the condition of the whole. 9. False reports on others defensively intended. 10. False reports on others maliciously intended, real third party. 11. Injustices, cumulative and unremedied. 12. Actions taken on others without investigation and without confronting them with their accusers or the data. This is a list of probable causes for an upset or downstat area. Security. The personal security of the staff member is so valuable to him apparently that when it is undermined by false accusations or injustice, he becomes less willing and less efficient and is the real reason for a PTS condition. Justice. The only thing which can actually remedy a general insecure feeling is a renewed faith in justice. Justice would consist of a refusal to accept any report not substantiated by actual independent data, seeing that all such reports are investigated, and that all investigations include confronting the accused with the accusation and, where feasible, the accuser, before any disciplinary action is undertaken or any condition assigned. While this may slow the processes of justice, the personal security of the individual is totally dependent upon establishing the full truth of any accusation before any action is taken. Harsh discipline may produce instant compliance, but it smothers initiative. Positive discipline is in itself a stable datum. People are unhappy in an area which is not well disciplined because they do not know where they stand. An area where only those who try to do their jobs are disciplined encourages people to hide and be inactive. But all discipline must be based on truth and must exclude acting on false reports. Therefore, we get a policy. Any false report leading to the unjust discipline of another is an act of treason by the person making the false report, and the condition should be assigned and its penalties fully applied. A condition of doubt should be assigned any person who accepts and disciplines another unjustly on the basis of a report which subsequently turns out to have been false. This, then, is the primary breakdown of any justice system, that it acts on false reports, disciplines before substantiation, and fails to confront an accused with the report and his accuser before any discipline is assigned, or which does not weigh the value of a person in general against the alleged crime, even when proven. Board of Review. Occasionally, an administrative body takes an action or issues a directive or order that A. results in lowered statistics, B. causes contraction of an area, C. results in an injustice. This is usually the result of incomplete CSW, acting on rumor without proper investigation and violation of basic policy. The function of a board of review is to look into injustices, technically incorrect findings, and instances of flagrant injustice or out-ethics actions which are destructive to stats. The board is convened by any LRH Com or Keeper of Tech, KOT, who appoints a chairman and 2 other members. Members of the board are appointed based on their own good statistics, high ethics level, and knowledge of ethics and justice policy. They are preferably org exec course graduates. A board of review can be originated by the LRH Com or KOT, or a CSW may be submitted to the LRH Com or KOT requesting a board be convened. The board, once convened, reviews the data concerning the matter using standard investigatory procedure and bases its decisions only on LRH policy. It has no authority to write or issue new policy or issue new directives or orders. The board can only cancel an action, directive, or order which has been found to A. be impractical, B. lower statistics, C. cause contraction, D. result in an injustice, E. violate basic LRH policy. It is expected that very few appeals will be lodged, and few boards will have to be convened, as the function of org execs and exec councils is to implement the long-standing and successful programs already covered in HCO policy letters. Directives, orders, and actions taken should be toward this end. For higher levels of recourse, boards of review exist at each echelon of the Church of Scientology ecclesiastic structure. Their function and who qualifies to avail themselves of such recourse and when they are available are made known in church directives. Petition. The right to petition must not be denied. It is the oldest form of seeking justice and a redress of wrongs, and it may well be that when it vanishes, a civilization deteriorates thereby. Therefore, these policies apply. 1. Any one individual has the right to petition in writing any senior or official, no matter how high and no matter by what routing. 2. No person may be punished for submitting a petition. 3. No 2 persons or more may simultaneously petition on the same matter, and if so, the petition must at once be refused by the person petitioned. Collective petition is a crime under ethics, as it is an effort to hide the actual petitioner. And as there may be no punishment for a petition, collective petition has therefore no excuse of safety, and is to be interpreted as an effort to overwhelm and may not be regarded as a petition. 4. No generality may be used in a petition, such as a report of collective opinion unspecified as to identities. This is to be interpreted as an effort to ARC break a superior, and the petition must be refused. 5. Only one person may petition on one matter, or the petition must be refused. 6. Threat included in a request for justice, a favor or redress, deprives it of the status of petition, and it must be refused. 7. Discourtesy or malice in a request for justice, a favor or redress, deprives it of the status of petition, and it must be refused. 8. If a petition contains no request, it is not a petition. 9. There may be no special form for a petition beyond these policies. 10. A petition which cannot be deciphered or understood should be returned to the sender with a request that it be made legible or comprehensible, but this should not be interpreted as a refusal or acceptance of the petition. 11. A copy of a petition seeking justice against another person or group must be sent that person or group to qualify the request as a petition. No action may be taken by the person or group, but he or they should append the copy to their own statement of the matter and send it at once to the executive being petitioned. 12. Petitions are normally directed to the heads of activities, such as the head of a portion of an org, HCO or the org or the public divisions in the persons of the HCO Executive Secretary, the Organization Executive Secretary, and the Public Executive Secretary, or senior orgs or L. Ron Hubbard. Ecclesiastic lines of authority are posted in churches of Scientology and indicate the various echelons of recourse. 13. Petitions may not demand committees of evidence or punishment for executives, but may only state what has happened and request the matter be righted. 14. A petition is itself and is not a form of recourse, and making a petition does not use up one's right to recourse. 15. All petitions delivered in person, verbally, or in person with a note, particularly when this restricts a senior's freedom of motion, must be refused. 16. HCO secretaries or communicators receiving petitions directed to be forwarded to higher executives which do not comply with these policies should append a copy of this policy to the petition and return it to sender. The sender should then reform the petition into acceptable form and return it on the same channels. When receiving his petition back with this policy, the sender must not assume it has been refused and become apathetic. He or she should realize that a favor has been done. For a petition in violation of these policies would have to be refused by the person to whom the petitioner addressed it, and that by rewording or complying with these policies, the petition now has a chance and will undoubtedly be given courteous attention. A petitioner should consider himself fortunate if a discourteous or collective or threatening petition is returned, as it would not be regarded as a petition by the executive to whom it is addressed and might color his or her opinion of the petitioner, perhaps obscuring some real wrong which might well have received attention. Petitions and ethics actions. No person under sentence or awaiting a committee of evidence may validly petition the office of LRH. A petition may only be submitted before or after the full course of Scientology ethics has been taken. As all ethics actions, such as a committee of evidence, are reviewed, in effect a line already exists due to the ethics action and the facts will be on it. Therefore, a communication from a person under legal sentence from ethics officers or a person named in a COMEV may not petition. Ethics actions must be permitted to take their course. A protest from ethics actions worded as a petition routinely causes further investigation, as the petitioner is actually only protesting ethics actions and is handled as such. Amnesty policy. Amnesty. A general pardon for past offenses, the granting of such a pardon, a forgetting or intentional overlooking, the rendering of punishment null and void for offenses earlier than the amnesty date, known or unknown, forgiveness of past criminal or antisocial actions, the removal of criminal names from police wanted files. An amnesty is general in nature, and when issued includes everyone. An amnesty is issued under L. Ron Hubbard, founder, or chairman of the International Board, to signalize an event of extreme importance in Scientology. Its secondary purpose is to end personal upsets and liabilities by reason of withholds and make it possible for them to be audited easily by auditors. A tertiary purpose is to prevent the buildup of personal rancor against Scientology, orgs, and individuals, as persons so disposed are always critical or vicious because of their own overt actions and consequent withholds, or simply because they fear what we can discover about them. It ends the cycle for such people. It is plainly meant by an amnesty that acts of a criminal or punishable nature are forgiven and placed beyond our retaliation or punishment. An amnesty specifically does not mean monetary or other obligations or acts of what are called a civil nature. Criminal acts result in punishment. Merely civil matters can result only in civil suits. Amnesty is clearly intended to cover only antisocial or anti-Scientology acts, and is clearly not intended to cover debts, contracts, or such agreements or obligations. Suspended certificates or classifications are restored by an amnesty. All committee of evidence sentences except financial and certificate cancellation are removed completely by an amnesty. Cancellation of certificates, classifications, and awards cannot be canceled by an amnesty, and so an amnesty does not restore them. Certificate and award cancellations occur only when the person has departed Scientology. This occurs because of lack of case gain. Case gain cannot occur in a person who commits continuously acts hostile to his fellow men. All chronic no-gain cases which do not advance in the face of any auditing are traceable to recurring hostile actions the person undertakes secretly against his fellows, not in the past, but in the present, during the time period of the auditing. So an amnesty is useless in cancellation matters. Such persons would have to first cease their continuous antisocial conduct and again be trained or processed. Offenses occurring after midnight of the release date of an amnesty are not covered by the amnesty. The frequency of amnesties is determined solely by the frequency of new triumphs of significant general importance to Scientology. Help them happen. Epilogue. A New Hope for Justice. Scientology ethics tech works when it is applied, but applying it means that the conditions have to be correctly assigned and the formulas have to be honestly applied. False reports and false data are the order of the day in this society, and justice has too often been used for political gain or getting rid of rivals or forwarding the purposes of some clique. The thought of using justice to straighten up the individual or to safeguard the society doesn't seem to have occurred to anybody. Observation. Societies today seem to be rigged so that any downstat creep can torpedo any upstat person and is even assisted in doing so by the powers that be. This alone could cause a decline of a civilization, as the reward for being an upstat is made inadequate by the penalties capriciously machine-gunned about by downstat criminals, bums, and degraded beings favored by their protectors and sponsors, the justice system and modern governments. As they themselves are contaminated by their criminal associates, the police and court systems are, in the main, composed of downstats who couldn't make it in life any other way. Societies traditionally cave in through their police and justice systems, since these provide a channel of contamination between the vicious and lawless and decent people. Eventually, such police and justice systems, aided by advice from criminal practitioners such as psychologists and psychiatrists, sink into a belief that all men are criminals. This at once justifies their own vicious practices and excuses their merciless injustices against all men. The few decent officers and judges in these systems find themselves unable to cope with the scene, surrounded as they are by vicious colleagues and connected as they are in their daily work to the minority dregs of the society. They soon sink into a hopeless apathy, and their sensible weight is seldom felt by others in the morass in which they wallow. Police and courts offer an open-armed opportunity to the vicious and corrupt to establish themselves in a position of safety while satisfying their strange appetites of perverted viciousness toward their fellow man. There is little thought of administering justice so that individuals can improve. There is every thought to punish and create misery. Justice systems thereby become a sort of cancer which erode every splendid ambition and achievement of the decent citizen. Man has never before invented a remedy for this corrosion in the name of justice. Even the Spanish Inquisition was headed, at Isabella's demand, by her own tutor so as to keep it from becoming a blot on her reign. And who was the tutor? It was the man Torquemada, who sank to a point where he began to bind his books with human skin, and whose name has come down through the ages as a synonym for cruel and senseless sadism. It was the Inquisition which did more to destroy the repute and power of the Catholic Church than any other single operation. Justice apparently cannot be trusted in the hands of man. The FBI charter mews about safeguarding the populace, but hides and is utterly disregarded by an organization whose principles are carefully planned wholly on terrorism and conducts itself more lawlessly than any criminal it ever listed as public enemy number one. Who is public enemy number one today? The FBI. Its obvious target is every opinion leader and public-spirited group in America. To the FBI, their own charter is not only a subject for mirth, but the Constitution itself, which they are sworn in to uphold, is just garbage which impedes their headlong terror zeal. In the name of justice, and even calling themselves the Justice Department, they practice every conceivable perversion of injustice. With their terror tools, preferring lies to fact, they have created a police state in which no man, woman, or child, or even a politician is safe, neither from downstats nor the FBI. To the FBI, all men are guilty and can't be proven innocent, and behind her bandaged eyes, justice herself weeps. In the name of justice, they have condemned this society to death. Tolerance, mercy, understanding, and the actual handling of the individual by decent and effective ethics technology is a new hope for justice. You cannot bestialize every man and expect any benefit to accrue to the society at large, even though this is what the contemporary justice systems are trying to do, which is of course its own brand of insanity. We must safeguard against unjust practices and make haste to remedy all injustices. We must be accordingly committed, or we will never make it. Meanwhile, we must cope with the social morass in which we find ourselves and rise above it. For factually, these generations have no hope, either as individuals or society, unless we do make it.